Welcome to Roleplay Cafe. I'm here with Jason, and we're going to discuss Traveler and where that may lead us to.
Yeah, this is Candid Conversations with Dell podcast, episode 3. We're taking our May Day's favorite games topics, and we're decided to drill in on Mongoose Traveler. Dell made that, and it inspired me to pull up my Mongoose Traveler PDF and peruse it again and talk about it. So let's do it. I'm going to let you lead the way, because that was your baby for May Days, or one of your babies, right?
Exactly, and I saw a little comment you made afterwards about a classic, and I think it got your mind, maybe I'm wrong about this, but swung toward what kind of makes certain games classic, because we know that there's hordes of RPGs out there, and how long they've been around, and what makes them tick, and what makes them persist, not only probably with the backing that they get, but why do some games become classic with players and get... Mm-hmm. Get a player base that kind of upholds them.
Mm-hmm. And those classics inspire copycats. They inspire the OGL, right? Yeah. They inspire guys to take that engine and make their own version of Traveler 42 years later, 35 years later, right?
Yeah,
we see copycats, exactly. Right?
Yeah, I mean, this could be, like Traveler. As far as to my mind, I know that. TSR had what was the spacefaring game?
Star Frontiers.
Really Star Frontiers,
which I think was a percentile. If I can remember right, was a percentile game. Yeah,
and I think Traveler itself really, I think, had an impact on a lot of people, because I believe there's a huge player base for Traveler, especially for those that love hard sci-fi, and you can tell its pedigree is from that era that you represented in those dark places, right? So I guess that was
Let's put it this way: if I was more comfortable with Traveler, if I had more experience with Traveler as a GM, I would have run that session of those dark places. I probably would have run with Traveler, right? That's something I would have prepared for a Traveler session. Right, but I just happen to own. I mean, I happen to find those dark places, simple D6 formula, non-binary success rate, and bought it, and then I was hyped to play it. But you're right. I would have. That's exactly the kind of tone I would have put to a Traveler game as a GM.
Yeah, I think it's very fitting too, and like I said, it shows from the time period that Traveler was first conceived, and the conceits of like 70s and 80s kind of sci-fi that are laid on top of it. I think it's very, to me, it hits a sweet spot as far as what can be knowable for people in the future, and not dealing with things that are out of the wheelhouse of most everyday players, like dealing with quantum gravity. That's this kind of very niche stuff. But Traveler, we can imagine that. It's been in movies, and it's like genre type movies have been produced about it, so everybody can grab that. From 2001 to Aliens to anything, it'll cover that whole gamut.
Right.
What I do, I think a lot of my gaming in particular, even though I prefer minimalist style systems, it did make me. Whenever I put it off the shelf, which I have to admit, those dark places, the game of those dark places got me thinking about it again. Not that I don't, love hard sci-fi or Traveler or whatever, but I know I put it in the corner of my shelf, and I've been clearing books down. I'm like, no, I'm gonna keep that.
I've been donating or gifting games away. I'm the same way. I'm not somebody who's gonna just hoard brilliant games that I'll never play again, right? I like to get them out there to people who might enjoy them or play them, right?
Yeah, and it's like different games have a different type, maybe audience, or maybe for somebody like when you were talking about autotelic or esoteric. Sure. The people that are autotelic may love to get into the minutia of mechanical play, right? To the degree that they become immersed in that. Yeah. That. Bean counting, so to speak.
Well, I mean, even when I didn't play AD&D as a kid, but I can't remember if I or Jeff, somebody had the first hardback books. But I know this, just grabbing those books and flipping those books open was inspirational. There was something, and I didn't really read them, we didn't use them, but there was just something like, holy shit, this had us. And that, for me, just the process of going through that, whether it was the aesthetic of the book, the art, the text, I don't care. There was just something about it that transported me. The 1981 Traveler, I have the black book, Traveler, the original black with the beautiful, just a black books with a red line across the top.
Yeah.
They're just, it is classic to me, and that's the one I own. And then of course I have the PDF of Mongoose. So I think I saw Traveler at the comic book shop when I was a kid. I was probably 10, 11, 12, and I picked it up, and I think it just went way over my head, right? I was like, I have no clue where to go with this, right? So I didn't get it, and I was the TSR kid, so I would just buy everything TSR put out, thinking that it would be basically D&D in space, right? Turned out Star Frontiers is not D&D in space. Top Secret is not D&D in space. They were actually unique systems, which was very cool, but I kind of was a brand kid. Everything was TSR for me. But I just got the Traveler thanks to you guys with Antoine. You guys were running it, and I was invited on board there. But looking at that book, I bought that book from Wayne, so I traded some of my games in to get that black Traveler Classic used. It's in great shape. And flipping through that just instantly, there was something about this clean aesthetic that just reminded me of kind of I can't explain it. Something about that era was less about glossy pages and less about color images, and there's just something to me that's nostalgic maybe. And reading that was amazing. Mongoose, of course, upped everything to that next level. The glossy pages, the full color pages, But the first thing that struck me in Mongoose was character gen. Dude, amazing. Blew my mind, the character gen in Mongoose.
I agree. There was, as far as my history of it, and I believe I was the one who, when we got to a point, it was just Antoine and Jim and myself in that first episode of Traveler, and I was the one who kind of mentioned it, because it is like I had the same impression with it when I originally saw it or picked it up. It seems almost daunting, like you don't want to go the same way AD&D was, because we was playing D&D, but it's like you look at those books and it's so rich in lore that you feel like that it has a lot more to unpack and uncover, and you just want to get a foothold in that.
Oh, dude.
But not.
Yeah, I agree. But no, here's what was so amazing about Mongoose. And again, I was already 48 years old when I first saw Mongoose Traveler. Mature, played a lot of stuff. But what I loved about it, the design intent in Mongoose Traveler, and I'm going to speak to Mongoose because that's what we're talking about, one. Second, I own Traveler 1981, but I've never played it. I've never actually, made a character in that, right? So I can't speak to whether that's a big difference, but I can speak to Mongoose. And Mongoose, dude, there is no escaping the atmosphere, the genre, the themes. When you design a character using Mongoose Traveler, you are going to get the design intent of the game. It's going to transport you to that mind space, right? It's going to put you, you're going to come away understanding the temperature of this game, the flavor of this game, the atmosphere of this game, the depth of this game.
Tone of it,
dude,
everything.
The character gen sets the whole mindset for players. It should set the mindset for players. This is not Star Wars. This ain't Star Wars. This ain't Star Trek. Although I would think both those things were very inspirational probably to the original writer. I think Mark Miller was the original creator. But it doesn't remind me of Star Trek or Star Wars. It is its own IP. It's its own thing, and it's amazing. All right.
It's its own beast, and I think I agree with you on the character Jim part, because it does to me step you uses that opportunity to create a character in a intriguing way to show you his history and what led through this character. So that's a mini story of where the character began to, but it also, like you said, infuses the tone of the game as you do it, and you understand so much as you go, and also auto connects to the other characters, so you all have a starting place from, and
And completely different design intent. I mean, what is the war cry of us grognards with old D&D? Dude, I don't want to hear about the background of your character. Your character ain't shit. Yeah. Make your character. We're going to play. You probably die, so don't waste your time on background, right? So that's the old grognard OSR. Dude, you can write a background if you want, but keep it to yourself. We don't care until your character's, what matters is Traveler, the design intent of Traveler is, this character is, he's been around. There's a reason he's even in this conversation, right? And I'll never forget when I made Knox and Trout, right? He started in the military, and then he ended up in prison, and he ended up doing a second term in prison. So when I joined your guys' game, dude, I knew who Knox and Trout was, right? And I love that idea that this was a Army vet who washed out of the Army and then ended up doing 2 terms in prison. I was like, this is so cool. I mean, this guy came to the table with experience and baggage, and here's the difference. It matters not because I write some background for my 1-level fighter in D&D, which we all know is bullshit. It's just bullshit. You're a 13-year-old kid with your daddy's sword, right? I mean, that's your background, right? You're a 16-year-old kid with your daddy's. Traveler says, oh, no, you've already lived maybe 15, 20. And I mean, I was Knox and Trout. Those first sessions, dude, I was in that headspace through those whole sessions. I mean, I was in character. I mean, Traveler inspired me to play from the beginning of that, totally in character.
Yeah, you start out definitely on the right foot. Mm-hmm. And, to throw back to my incomplete thought earlier when I said, I think I was the one who mentioned it, because we were like in between games and said, well, why don't we play this? And the same, I say that because it was the same thing for, I believe, Antoine, because if I remember correctly, he said that was the first time he run it, but he would do videos on it.
Wow.
And it was sitting in the corner. I had that same book that I think I gifted it to him later on, and then I ended up buying the new Traveler because it's something like it pulls you into it. You want to kind of discover it and see what it was. So I'm glad that we all have the opportunity to finally play it.
Is Mongoose Traveler a second edition, or is it?
Oh, I'm sure there have been multiple editions, but
because it talks here. A classic Traveler is Mark Miller. Mongoose Traveler is Matthew Sprang. Original core mechanics, Gareth Henry. Also, our YouTube colleague and longtime Sean Driscoll was part of this playtest and everything. Shauner, who's fantastic. He used to do some great YouTube stuff. I haven't seen much of his YouTube stuff of late. But when I saw Sean Driscoll was involved with this version and this playtest, I thought, well, there you go, because, right, he's kind of an expert on Traveler, I think. But anyway, I've never quite been able to put together, is this just a remaster of the original Traveler, or was this a second edition? I don't know. Again, my ignorance here abounds, but...
Yeah, I remember reading the mechanics of the first game, and it was different than this. I can't recall them, to be honest with you, because it get muddy. And we focused.
I would assume they clearly brought it up to date, because this was February. I don't even know what date this was released. They should have a copyright on it. 2016. Wow, so it's only 6-7 years old. Holy shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. They're still putting.
I didn't know that. Man, I thought this was old, like 19. Because I had Mongoose RuneQuest. So my first.
Oh yeah.
I had never seen RuneQuest. I was able to get the Mongoose RuneQuest books off Amazon. I couldn't believe it. They were like $7 a beat, hardback. I got the DM's guide, and I ran some RuneQuest, Mongoose RuneQuest, and I loved it. And I thought, this is brilliant. Mongoose RuneQuest is brilliant. But I had never seen the original RuneQuest, right? So I guess, but that was I want to say that was in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. So this is interesting to see Traveler. Yeah, see, it just shows you it's newer than I thought it was. That's ironic. Yeah.
Oh yeah. They still, when I go to my little friendly gaming shop, whatever they call them, I still pull it up. They still release it.
So the company's still around, Mongoose?
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah, in fact, they do Paranoia. That's why I picked up Paranoia.
Okay.
We all pick up these games that we have, but it was because of what they did with the Traveler that I thought, okay, this is an interesting concept.
Yeah, I certainly thought they made RuneQuest much more accessible to me and my local group. When I ran RuneQuest, I think I ran 4 sessions with my local guys. It was more accessible. It was easy. It had been brought kind of up, and it was just more easier to teach. It just seemed that way to me. Because I later got the original classic RuneQuest, and I'm happy I started with Mongoose RuneQuest. Let's put it that way, right?
I mean, to be honest with you, a lot of the game, even board games back in the 80s, some of them were really needlessly mechanically complex.
Well, I think back in the day, they really relied on text to explain everything. Now books use art, and they use tables, and they use But it's funny when you look back at like old Holmes, everything's text. You have to read everything, and then something might pertain back to chapter 1 and chapter 3, and you're like, wait a minute, where is that about? Saving throws. It turns out it's not where you'd think it would be. And Traveler's that way. It's all text for the most part. The original 19, it's all black, black text on white pages, right? And I think
they can get convoluted, after a period of time. But there are definitely various ways, like you said, to get information to the person, whether it's visually that might be easily, readily acceptable to the player to understand, to where he can just get off on the right foot. It's sort of like when he was playing in Dark Places, and then David made that thing. Well, could have set a diagram that way. You wouldn't have to be explaining. Well, you're here, there. Yeah. We just glance at it, and it keeps us immersed more so.
Yeah, but, I wanted that game to be detail rich, theater of the mind, and I think I pulled it off. But because I wanted it to be so detail rich, I really did need to give you guys some kind of schematic. I think it would have been a better experience for you guys. And it would have been less difficult to communicate. Like when you locked the android into the living quarters. When you said you did it, instinctually the way you said it, it was like, well, you just locked down that room with him standing in it right there. You're good to go. You already know the schematics of this. Why would you try to take him somewhere else? But I couldn't communicate that to you because you didn't have a schematic in front of you. So it was like, no, this is the best place to lock him in. You would just make that decision and lock him in here.
Yeah,
it was purely by accident because you guys happen to be right.
Yeah, but to me, I was like, unless it's like I'm trying to pull out the information from your head. But like I'm just saying that some things are more visually readily accessible to the player. Then it can help expedite things and get to the core, focus of what you're doing, which is role playing. And it was a small little gap because you were doing a fine thing, but to me, in my head, I'm thinking about other things. So you just need points of reference.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me,
absolutely.
Are all right visually,
Well, especially when you're crawling about a spaceship in which you may need to know all those subtle nuances of your ship, right? I mean, if you're belly crawling in A3, in the plumbing to get away from the alien or something, right? It's kind of nice to know what's around you, right?
Yeah, because I can look at that schematic and say, there's a shaft that leads here to there. I'm going to take this. You're like, what? Okay.
Yeah, and I would have let you do that. You could have said, listen, I know this ship. I'm the security guy. I happen to know there's a conduit, blah, blah, blah. That's part of how we play, right? I'm going to let you make sense of the ship because you're the security man of the ship. So why should I say no? That's silly. But because you said you wanted to lock him in, I thought this is exactly where you would do it. You would just pop up the control panel, zip both doors shut, and lock it. And
which wasn't too far away from what I was thinking. You know what I mean? I just wanted to.
Well, I think you were thinking where it wouldn't impede us from the rest of the ship, and right. But either way, that's just we're getting off track. So.
Oh yeah, I know.
So, character Jin in Traveler Mongoose for me instantly gave me the intent of what the hell we're doing and how deep this is, and then from there, of course,
beautiful, elegant way.
Oh, beautiful! Yeah. And you can't escape the fact that your character is meaningful before we even roll dice, right? And he may not be a hero, and he may not be a superstar, but he has got a history in which he's qualified to undertake on these jobs, these missions, these crews, whatever, right? And it doesn't require the GM to fill in a lot of gaps, right? Like I had to do with Those Dark Places. It's really a broad stroke, simple game that allows you to kind of make it your own, which is what I did. I made it my own, but I felt like I had to fill in some of that for you guys. Where you could decide that your security was ex-military. That's your background. That's fine, right? So you did it yourself. So something like Those Dark Places leaves it open for us to do it ourselves, to make our own way. But Traveler, because of how the character Jin starts you off, you get the design intent of what Traveler is, or you should. And if you're playing it like Star Wars, you miss the point big time. right?
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start off like that with a little bit of history, it even adds more. And I ain't talking about writing huge pages of back history. I'm talking about this is a nice way to just say, okay, I can see how this individual got to where he is, and it informs me on how this individual character is going to interact with others in the group.
Mm-hmm.
Trout over there, he's been in lockdown for so many years.
8 years. I had 2 terms in prison. I think 8 years, and then 4 in the military. I was like, 12 years of my life had been prison.
Yeah, so I mean,
for
a
Knox
lot of that,
Trout, right? Dude, I loved it. I mean, I couldn't wait to play Traveler. When I made Knox and Trout, I did, this is something. This is something, right?
Yeah. And overall, like I was saying in my little video, I think that a lot of the aspects, game mechanic wise,
great transition. So let's talk about the game mechanics, right? It is a 2d6 modified by an attribute, normally to beat 8, correct?
The average is 8. Yeah.
Okay.
It's but there's levels of difficulty or degrees.
Right. Now, is it a binary pass-fail system, or is it a partial success, a partial failure? What are we talking about? Binary pass-fail?
No, it's not necessarily binary, but it can be. This is kind of up to the players, but they call it an effect. And generally, this goes to failure, okay? Because if you roll above your target number, you can be narratively add more flourish or whatever, more bells and whistles. And on the opposite end of that,
does the actual rule book suggest that? I mean, does the actual rule book suggest that if you roll, if you need an 8, you roll a 9, you get to add a little flavor to it?
Yeah, I'm gonna. In fact, I got a book here
because I haven't read it since we played, which was Jesus.
Well, see, we didn't really do that in the play.
No, but I mean, I don't recall reading it in the book. Look, so we got inspiration. They do mention. Oh wow! So I didn't notice this. Trader campaigns. They mention Firefly, Elite, right? Military campaigns. They mention Starship Troopers, Aliens. That's interesting. So they do use some stuff to inspire play. Star Trek for an Explorer campaign. That's interesting because I get the feeling when I read Traveler, it is definitely its own thing.
This as far as the effect, it says for most situations, the only thing that needs to be determined is whether or not the traveler succeeds. So therefore, binary.
Yeah, so it is. So in that sense, like
but it says often though it is important to know how well the traveler did or how bad. To do this, subtract the target number from the dice roll, including any modifiers. This margin of success or failure is the effect, which can be consulted on the effects results table. This also is used in combat.
Oh, so it has a table. So you'll have to forgive me because I literally have not read this since we played, and I haven't looked at it since when you mentioned it. That's when I realized I think I have that, and so I pulled it up. So it has a chart for. Okay, so it has a chart of degrees of success and failure. That's fascinating. Okay, I don't remember us doing that. I don't remember us doing that in play. I think we just made rolls. Pass fail. I think. Yeah,
we didn't use that. And said most situations you just need to know that, but in certain situations you may need to know to what degree.
So when Mark ran you guys, Kurnow, because didn't you play Mark's module, Mark Kurnow? Did he use classic?
That was great. Geez, I think he used Mongoose. Yeah,
did he? Mongoose. Okay, and did he use degrees of success, so failure and success?
No, it really never. Like it says here, in most situations, it doesn't. Okay. It's binary. Okay. But at different times, you may need to be. And it's good to me that you can have an effect of that. To say like a catastrophic failure, something happens. But that's all interpretive toward the
Well, it makes sense if it's timing. Let's say it's a timing situation. We got to get out of here. 20 minutes, man. This place is going to blow up, and Joe's trying to toggle up the autopilot. And you get to make a roll, and, Joe makes the roll, but he makes it at a high level. Joe gets that pilot up, and, man, you got 15 minutes to spare to get out of there, right? So, for timing situations, I could see that degree of failure and success being huge for timing situations.
Yeah, right. And that's what it's telling you in certain situations. But I love that it's able to do that or allow that, or at least brings it to bear, because I think people... no matter what, and games are binary, but you always feel like, oh, I just made it, even though that's illusory. If you roll a 19,
20, right? When guys roll a 20 in D&D, for some reason they see that 20 as I really hit him.
Oh
man, I hit that son of a bitch right up perfect. It's just a fucking number. You just succeeded, but obviously because of that psychological effect, we added the idea of crits, double damage, right? But you're right. For some reason, when you roll a 12 on 2d6 boxcars, you're going to go, oh, shit, I really knocked that out of the park. It doesn't actually have an effect on play unless the game says it has an effect on play, right?
But I'm going to tell you this. I think it's warranted in a way, the same way boons and banes are warranted in this game, even though they don't really mean squat. Because in Dark Age of Man, we just adjust the target number, right?
Yeah,
but a boon and a bane in this game is like, if it's a boon, you add one more die to it, and then you take the two highest if it's a bane. But why couldn't that just be adjusted in?
Well, I like the boon and bane because it makes it swingier. It actually, it does make a swingier roll, believe it or not, than just a modifier. So in D20, if you roll 2 D20s, so let's say advantage in 5th edition says get to roll 2 D20 and you get to take the best roll. That's swingy as shit. Right? Versus saying, oh, you get a +4 to your roll, which is a locked-in 20% kick. That's not swingy at all. I'm going to get a 20% kick. Now, I could still roll a 1 and it's swingy, but you get my point. So, adding another die really creates a larger variation of a swingy thing, right? Now, here's the deal. How do you get boons and banes in Traveler, Mongoose Traveler?
Well, I'll tell you, and then I want to go back to what you just said, because I think it just sheds a light on the way I think automatically.
Okay.
But like I said, boons, if you roll 2d6, you roll 3d6 with a boon, and then you take the two highest,
right,
and then drop the lowest. If it's a bane, you take the two lowest.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So it still has that. I sort of consider it a novelty, because I think it can be bound up in just, because the more moving parts to me, like if I add this or add that, it keeps you out of gameplay and more in the mechanisms, and I don't necessarily gravitate toward that. But I do think that there's a reason that people go out and gamble or roll or do whatever, because you feel like you're throwing something physically. There's an interaction between what you're doing. You grab that extra dice and you roll. You go, oh man. Now I don't necessarily, to go back to what you were saying about the swinginess, like D20, I don't like that, because I feel cheated immediately. I just want to know the result, and I want to, myself as a player, I want to deal with what I just rolled. But I don't want to feel like, oh, it could have been. All right,
but this is why I asked, how do you get boons and banes? Because you can't take it out of context. So you can't take a mechanic of adding another die to the roll out of context. So I'm just talking about the math. It just creates a swingier math. But the context of boons and banes is part of the design intent of a game. So how do you get a boon? How do you get a bane? So in D&D 5th edition, you have advantage. You get to then use that advantage, or I think you can also earn role-playing tokens that you can later use for advantage. And so you get to strategically use it, right? I get to choose when I'm going to take advantage. Obviously in D&D 5th edition, for instance, you can just have advantage because you're surrounding an enemy, right? And everybody gets advantage or something, right? So it's immediate effect. But there's some kind of role-playing aid in D&D where I can score these chips and I can hold them in my pocket when I really don't want to fail a roll. I can pull out that second D20, right? Like bennies.
Yeah.
In Savage Worlds, you can't take out of context what a benny means. It's in its total relationship to the role-playing ideas and conceits of Savage Worlds, right? So how do we earn boons and banes in Traveler is going to indicate why we would even utilize this mechanic, right?
I see what you're saying now, and that's why it didn't strike me, because it's really no more than what we may consider in Dark Age of Man is just upping the difficulty level. Because the example it gives is trying to do something while you're hanging upside down. Right, so it's just a different criteria. So
that would be a bane, right, dude? You're hanging upside down, trying to shoot oncoming traffic, right? Oncoming people with bats that are trying to bat the shit out of you, right? And so
to me, I just bumped the difficulty up higher. You know what I mean? As far as trying to train in, so it doesn't have that mechanical necessity of utilizing it as a player.
Now, here's the deal, though. in a 2 to 12 window, you can't just keep bumping up difficulty. So the boons and banes make sense. Keep the difficulty at 8 or 9, but give them an extra die or take away a die, right, to make it harder. Because you're only dealing with 11 numbers in that window, and it's weighted. So the boon and bane makes sense for a 2d12.
You're right.
Summed
you're right.
number, right?
You're
because you can't keep. Dude, if you were to say, dude, this difficulty's 10, holy shit, that's pretty big. That's a pretty hardcore jump, right? As opposed to say, hey, it's 8, but you're gonna have to roll 3 die, take the worst result.
Yeah, that's a fair point you made there. I didn't think about the die that we were rolling. You know,
like our game is 1 to 12, so our difficulty. But we know you have attributes and modifiers that can be added to the D12, so I can push that DV up to 14, 15, and then you guys work to lower it through other means or other effects. Right, so that window of numbers becomes important to why you would need a boon or a bane. So in Traveler, it makes more sense to me than say 2d20. I mean, 5th edition.
Oh yeah, and honestly, even though I said I didn't, it could be just distilled down into a modifier.
It could,
which to your point, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like here it says that if travelers are hindered in checks such as poor tools, dimly lit environment, or other negative circumstances, he receives a bane.
Right.
If the traveler has help, good tools, competent aids, or other beneficial circumstances, he receives a boon.
Now, see, and what I do love about that, to me, mechanically, as someone who wants to play a character immersed in the thing, the boon or bane is easier than a DM saying, Jason, go ahead and add 2 to this. Because, number one, it looks arbitrary. And number 2, it means we have to communicate about it. But if, let's say, Shauner's running us in a Traveler game and my foot's caught in a grate and I'm trying to run down the, whatever, and he says, you're trying to break free here, you're going to have to do this with a Bane. I know instantly what he's talking about. Just pick it up and roll it, take the worst roll.
And I like the way they do it more so than advantage disadvantage, because to me the advantage disadvantage is real swinging on 2d20.
It is.
Yep. But I with this you're looking at the 3 dice and then you pull the 2 highest or 2 lowest. Right. So it isn't as swingy. So I appreciated the way it was done. It wasn't ever any kind of like a glaring flaw. Right. It was just more like an afterthought where I could just do that to modifiers. But on re-looking at it, like especially if you look at it like added gear or added this, at least conceptually in my mind, like you're adding something, or if you got poor gear and you're taking away something. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you get that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I actually like that. I'm trying to do something on the computer, and Joe says I'm going to go over and help him with that, and I'm going to pull up the computer beside him, and we're both going to work. That would become a boon for us, and I'd make the roll with my buddy helping. It's like that simple for the GM to say, "You got a boon. Joe's helping you." Right? Yeah, it's intuitively you just grab through dice and roll it. As opposed to the GM go, well, it's a +3. It's a +2, right? Which works for simple games, I think. Or even the D20, because the D20 is this, let's face it, D20 is roll, add something, or subtract something. That's just how D20 works 90% of the time, right? D&D tried to, I think, make it more narrative with the advantage-disadvantage conversation, but I think it's pretty swingy, right? I agree. And, talking with you right here, it does make more sense in it, where I kind of just relegated it to. And I think it's design intent, right? It's the design intent, which on how you're going to play Traveler as a role-playing game, not a tactical combat game, so to speak, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm more immersed when a GM speaks to me in vocabulary versus math. When a GM says to me, you're disadvantaged, that I can grasp that in my character's frame of mind more than if he says -4. -4 just doesn't make sense to Knox and Trout when he's trying to pilot. When I'm trying to disarm, because I was the demolitions expert, when I'm trying to arm or disarm that bomb, if you remember in one of our sessions, I'm trying to disarm that damn bomb or whatever, it certainly would be keeping within my immersive state of the character when I hear vocabulary versus math, because math is not how Knox and Trout's thinking about this. Yeah, you're 100% right on that. Whenever it really, I think that's why even in D&D the advantage and disadvantage was taken by the players, because it's something that they can immediately do. It's not like take 5 or take 3 and then you're having to do math, which is very
the moment. You know what I mean? You take in these physical objects and rolling them, and then saying, okay, I got this. So it is really, I think this, the design intent, like you're talking about of the game, is to make the players more intuitively
character driven.
Able.
Yeah. I mean, I came to that. Yeah, but I came to that session, those sessions with you guys, thinking I'm going to be Knox and Trout in this place, in this, I mean, I wanted to be in character because he had such great background, right? It's like, oh, this is amazing, So I'm also, that means I want to stay there, right? Through much of the conversation, through much of the, the drama, trauma, whatever. I want to kind of be in that space. So I prefer vocabulary. Like those dark places the other night, I would say this is easy, this is normal, this is hard. And then, of course, I would have to say, by the way, don't forget to add your +2 for your crew position to it. It's just going to happen. That's gaming. But I certainly prefer saying, hey, this is easy. It's point blank. And you just fire the shotgun and, Yeah,
that's like in the old Fudge games, which later Fate is a version of. He doesn't use like points. And I think even when we was talking about it in Dark Age of Man, we kind of called over the fact of saying, like, putting words that defined like good or fair or whatever. That way people can kind of intuitively understand it. It's done like that in games when you have it written out.
Yeah, and I like to
use it actively in a game is what you're aiming for.
Well, and I definitely, when we're playing Dark Age of Man and you're on the horse and you're trying to jump from your horse to a runaway wagon with a damsel in distress, right? And you ride up on your horse and you're going to leap from your horse, right? You're narrating how you're chasing down this wagon and you're going to make the jump, right? I want to be able to say, this is hard. This is hard for you, James, right? And James, and you immediately as the character go, oh shit, this is right, and you're making the leap, right? I mean, it's
that's what I mean. It's not a leap to mathematics. It's like, oh, this is a +5, Jack. It's not like that. It's like, this is hard. That way, you can stay in that immediacy of the situation, and it less. I hate to say, with immersion, you still stay more geared toward the moment that you're in with words and vocabulary as opposed to
so I think Boon and Banes is a genius way to modify the difficulty. Yeah, it's great. Or to give the player a tangible mechanical piece, right? Instead of doing the math in their head. They're going to already roll the dice and know to knock out the lowest number, right? We're not getting into a lot of talk about numbers, right? Okay.
Correct.
Next for me and Traveler is the equipment stuff and the technological levels. This was something that I came to our sessions. I hadn't read in the book, so I didn't realize there were tech levels. I mean, I created a character. I knew that I was wearing a tech level 1 suit or something like that, and so that was when I just in play I started to realize, whoa, there's some depths here to Traveler that you again don't get in any other game I had experienced to that point. That it defines the tech level of cultures, planets, a gear.
Yeah.
Which again lends to this idea that although you're in this vast universe of adventure, there's cultural, technological levels which you really should adhere to some, in some way, right?
Yeah, I think.
So talk about that because you know that a hell of a lot. Again, you know that better than I do.
Well, I mean, essentially, you're summing up what the core thing is. You just have to, whenever to me, it adds that richness of being able to go in different cultures, different planets. And granted, whenever you're playing Traveler, like you get a planet, it's going to be it's probably going to have the same tropiness of like no planet is like just a desert planet. And habitable wise, with creatures.
Yeah, planets are pretty large when it's all said and done.
Yeah, so
what's the tech level of America right now versus the tech level of Ghibli-Gook?
But when you're playing a game, you got to relegate it to like one culture and one environment per planet. So when you drop on there, you set their tech levels, their culture is based around, and then it's a fun way to get down there and then say we have to adhere to and learn their culture. And that gives you something to do while you're on the planet.
Right, and that's very Star Trek-esque to me. That's where I see Star Trek's influence on Traveler, because they had a mission in Star Trek to not interfere with cultures, right? So when I first when it first came up in session, I started going, oh wow, there's tech levels, because I had not read that far in the book. I was just creating a character to get my feet on the ground in that session, and I went, that piece I definitely see. There's some Star Trek influence there, right? That this stuff matters. These planets at levels and cultures and shit matter, and
you gotta be responsible.
It makes every planet you land on a completely different vibe for adventure, I guess, right?
Oh yeah, different environment, different culture you're dealing with, different situations. You know, you could be tracking somebody who took some higher tech level to a lower planet. You gotta, you know what I mean, get under if you're playing a law.
Right.
You know that, or you could do anything. You could merchandise. The openness of it. You know, it's a lot of the attraction to me of certain IP, whether it's Star Wars or whatever, is just the potential for possibilities. Mm-hmm. Like I said, when you open that Traveler book, I was like, oh, what are the possibilities? That generates some kind of a thing in me to say, what could we go out there and create in this larger area? You know, explore this. So that whole, it's not like it's a small little area. You know, and that's great. Like, you know, a little mini OSR area that you're constantly in. This is like mind expanding, door opening way and openness to get out there and do whatever you need to do on different planets.
And that's what I loved about the original series. I'm a huge Star Trek original series fan. I mean, Star Trek to me is the original series. Everything else is nice, comes along later, and it's good, and it's entertaining. But one of the things I loved about that as a kid, and even as an adult, having seen them a million times, I've seen all 3 seasons over and over and over, it's that every week they're on a different planet, they're in a different dilemma, they're visiting different cultures, right? And so that's where that Traveler thing comes from. You're not just exploring mysteries, you're going to be dealing with certain cultures, which are going to require a certain... you may not be able to solve every problem with fancy technology.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
Which is one of my issues.
Whether you have to strip down.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, you're not going to... And that's what I loved about Star Trek. Like, you know, dude, they have this ship with photons. They could just blow the enemy city off the fucking map. And I say, no, we don't go about things that way, right? So that means Kirk's got to dress up in a loincloth and a spear, right? And he's going to have to impact them through different means than just force, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, point is, so Traveler, in that sense, I think, it checks all those boxes, right? It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. The sky's the limit. And again, I think that's why it's a classic. That's why it was remastered. Or I should say, that's why Mongoose purchased the rights and you know, brought it up to the next millennium, right? Into the new millennium, right?
Yeah, next generation. And
I think it deserves it. Deserves it. I would love to say this about D&D, but in my opinion... post AD&D second edition, and I think TSR was still the owner ultimately up through 3, right? Didn't TSR still own the rights to D&D up to 3rd edition?
Yeah. I don't think Wizards bought it.
At that point, and I would argue 3 became rules lawyering, too complicated, too much minutia, too much simulationism. And in my opinion, it lost its way. And in my opinion, D&D has never reinvented itself as the classic. I would say Mongoose Traveler adheres to what made Traveler classic and is classic, right? Because it didn't change the entire paradigm of what the hell Traveler's about. And I think D&D, they dropped the ball, in my opinion. AD&D, I think second edition would have been where I would have stopped. And then I would have attempted, through bringing it into the next phase, write it better, make it easier to understand, make it more accessible. But why is it so? It's evolved, and now they did this with 5th edition. They tried to bring it back around, I think. But at this point, the zero-sum outcome of the D20 formula for high-level gaming is just shit. It's just shit. You know, and again, this wasn't going to be a podcast ripping D&D. It was meant to be a podcast talking about Mongoose Traveler. But I can't help but compare 2 giants in the role-playing world, right? I mean, let's face it, 1981, Basic Moldvay, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, right? It is classic. People are still playing it. It's inspired how many OSRs? Astonishing Swords and Swordsmen of I mean, it's AD&D basically packed with a Conan-esque world, right? Right, it's a OSR of AD&D for the most part, right? And there's a reason they're hearkening back to the original AD&D and not to 4th edition D&D to make astonishing swords and swordsmen of, right? You see what I'm saying? They didn't make that on 4th edition or 3rd edition. They made it on AD&D, not, right? Yeah. And I have to look and say, Traveler is that other giant in a way that, and I think they've done a good job. Mongoose did a good job, I think, retaining that and bringing it up to the future, so to speak, with color, with art, you know. Although I love that black, I love that 1981 book though. It's but that's nostalgia probably. It harkens back to my childhood when things were simple like that, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the irony. Things, you know, a lot like advanced D&D back in there. Like you would look at it. I look at it as like it had that gravitation toward like, oh, this could where we could lead to, but I never jumped in that deep, you know, and I'm glad I didn't because, you know, I'd have been overwhelmed with like the minutia of weighing every possibility and having to mechanically do that, you know, and it was games like that I would look at, like the Avalon Hill war games. I would look at with all the little counters and everything.
Oh, dude, yeah.
It's like a dream state that I could.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Panzer Leader and Tank Command and those Avalon Hill war games were intense. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely, and I think that they were trying to, especially back in the 80s and in late 70s when we were all doing this. Yeah. They had a really, I think a lot of the rule sets were more convoluted and was less able to, you know, to push over its meaning to just the average Joe sitting there. Yeah. I mean, really, if you had, I mean, it was war games that invented D&D for God's sake. Sure, of course.
And so that pedigree was in there, and from the 80s too. Yeah. You know, so I think things have really changed to where it's able to be written in a way that can be more easily accessible by a larger demographic and type players to be understood, and it's even forms of more simpler play like like D&D, and as opposed to advanced D&D. So there's a little bit of difference in those games back then. Yeah. I think it's a lot that, to me, we're in more of a golden age of it. Oh. I know that there's
we're in two things. I think we're in the golden age of tabletop gaming for a number of reasons, but we're also in the golden age of derivative mass production and copycat. You know, I mean, at the same time, we are overwhelmed with complete shit across. I mean, for the most part, there's a whole. Let's say there's 6,000 games available out there right now. Right? Yeah. How many of them are truly unique and truly, you know?
No, I mean everybody. But see, that excitement is what propelled D&D in the first place. Just the concept that there's possibilities out there, because it's like the handshake that I always refer to, like the player being involved. You got to give the person on the other side of the table an open avenue to create on their own, you know, feel part of the game, that they can make different things. That's why I don't make modules. You know, I just create on my own. So we get a chance to be creative too. Oh, yeah. And, you know, whether or not the rules, like when Holmes looked at the rules and he says, nobody can understand this, we need to put it in a way that it can be understood. Yeah, at least he got them on a foot to where people can understand it. But there was a general attraction, just the concept of it, you know, and moving forward. And I'm not saying that it wasn't playable, because everybody knew how to play it, but there was so many, I think, versions of.
Oh, dude! Every DM, every dungeon master was playing his version of D&D.
That's why.
And I mean, if you ask my buddies, what did we play?
It was interpreted.
If you asked all the guys I grew up with, Jeff and Paul and Fred, and when I said we're playing D&D, right? Their version of D&D was really my version of D&D, because I was cannibalizing rules from AD&D for them. I was cannibalizing monsters. I was ignoring certain things. They got D&D as a general kind of thing, obviously using Moldvay mostly, but there was no such thing as me using AD&D as written, so to speak, right?
Yeah, you can role play without being raw.
Right.
And I mean, I hate to say it, you can, because these rules are everybody play that way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times you look at it and you go, oh, I didn't, because you only half reading it. Who likes to read instructions anyway when it comes down to it? Lord knows I don't. Even on a basic game, I'm passing it to Jory and say, read this and tell me how to play.
Is that why the doors on your TV are on backwards?
Exactly, but I mean, nobody wants to do that, so it's better for somebody else to tell you. So when you sat down and told them guys, anybody has the gumption to read that stuff and say, this is how we play it, then it becomes a culture thing to where you pick up, and then later on you can run into something else and you go, oh, that's interesting. Right. Yeah. Hey, you were talking about.
I didn't meet other people that were running games until older, and there were guys that lived in our neighborhood, our subdivision of a. We grew up in big subdivisions, so we were all in the same street, in the same cul-de-sac, like Stranger Things, right? But literally 2 blocks away, there would be a guy that might be in the same school I'm at, 2 grades ahead of me or 2 grades below me, running his little clique of brothers, sisters, and friends, and completely different experience. And a couple of times I were invited over to those games, and I was like, I can't do this. You suck. You suck, right? And I'd have to say, I'll never come back and play with your ass, because it was about them crushing you and destroying you. And it's like, who plays with these guys, right? These guys are like fucking abusive, and or they just didn't get it. It was all arguing and bickering over whose turn it is. I mean, they weren't even playing a game. It was something else, right? It's like, oh my God, you guys, you suck, right? So I rarely left my culture and came away going, and not until I came online, really, and started meeting guys that I think that existed out there in the world for the same time I did, but I didn't know these guys, right? And I started playing online, and went, okay, good. There were people who got it. There are people who get what we do, might do it a little different, might have preferences that are different, right? But at least these guys know what role-playing to some degree is. You know what I mean?
Well, see,
yeah.
Do you think your perception of role-playing has changed over the last, how many years you've been online?
Oh, yeah. My perception is mostly changed in that I honor the work to the point that I look for the intent, whether they meant it or not. And I've said this before. My big argument is whether you want to play raw or not, I read the books. My initial thing is to understand the intent of the author. Then it's to understand I should at least try and endeavor to play it the way the game is intended before I change it, before I break it, before I throw out rules. So for me, and part of this realization is I grew up playing tabletop games like Avalon Hill War Games, Avalon Hill Sports Games, etc. They all had a design intent, but like you're going to, here's a scenario, you got to get the tank platoon by turn 8, you need to control this area. We knew the rules. We knew how to win. We followed the rules. D&D, there are no rules like that, right? One guy's the referee and the GM and the narrator and the storyteller and the whatever he is, world creator, and everybody else is mice and amazed, and they're going to be treated a particular way depending on the nature of the DM or the nature of the table. But something like a sports game, well, it's following actual sports rules. So the intent of a football game. They're trying to simulate a game of football. Right? How are we going to play it? And what's the chess match between me and you? And how does the game work? But we're playing a game of football. It's simulating a sport that actually exists. Well, role-playing games, early on, I don't think were all written understanding the intent. I think now designers and developers, they do. When I talk about derivative glut of nonsense, everybody authors a game, and they just cherry pick their favorite rules and put it in their own book, give it a name.
No, it's just their own homebrew.
Yeah, and it's worse than that, because they don't even know why they're choosing what they're choosing. It's worse than that, because I don't think they always know why they pick the rule they pick.
This is what I was going to say whenever I said, you can play without being raw. What I meant in this is that we all have. And there's a lot of times, there's rules there for a reason, right? And it does either are integral to the game or either add a certain level of experience. Like, to me, one of the things that I saw that I didn't like in new these glut games, or even just regular games, like some games would be like, what is that usage die? Just keep rolling and dropping a die until you. I'm like, bull crap, because I'm so used to. I think it adds a lot more for me to count my arrows or to count that torch going out, because it can put you in. I like anything that enhances the possibility and probability that things could change situationally for you, and you have to deal with it. When I'm erasing that in the game, and I go, I ain't got to worry about arrows. You just have an immediate supply, or the torch is going forever. Then I don't have that anxiety of like I'm going into a deep dark hole with a torch.
What it does is it turned ammunition and torches into a game mechanic that became random, and therefore it created a wow moment. Very beer and pretzels. Versus, I've got 6 fucking arrows left. And now you go into the next combat debating on whether you want to use these arrows in this situation or not, right? I mean, you start having to think tactically, which immerses me, as opposed to, oh, I finally rolled a 1. Nope, there went my last arrow. I had no fucking control over that. It's a game thing. It's a gamey element. Like a board game, like Monopoly. I have no control over how I move in Monopoly. I roll a 1d6. I'm either going to go 1 space ahead or 6 space ahead or 3 or 4 or 5. The strategy in Monopoly is when I land on the thing, what am I going to do?
Exactly. And I'm saying when we were kids playing this stuff, we could be lazy and just not look at the rule or not understand it, or just be lazy as adults and not even care about it, or think it's more weighty to have to account for. But it does certain things lend to the game, and I want to be put in situations where I have to feel like I've got to contend with something. And if mechanically they can add to that probability of it happening, or like you said, you know that you got this torch that lasts for so long and you got to get in and get out, and you can't stop. It's just freaking lollygag or like tiddlywinks along the way. You got to do what you got to do. So it changes my mindset. It puts me more in the thing. I'm not wanting to be mechanically to break my immersion, but to add some.
And this is why I say, when people claim there is the idea of the design intent, well, if you don't know that as an author or designer of a game, then you got your head firmly rooted up your ass. If you want to use usage dice, you better understand the design intent of why you're choosing usage dice, because there is an intent in that style of play that's going to show up whether you know it or not. And that's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with usage dice, but know that it's going to create a certain type of play that you might not be as immersed in, but you'll certainly have a laugh when you suddenly run out of arrows in the middle of an important combat, right? It suddenly becomes dire for you. Now you're using a dagger. Shit, I should have bought a longsword when I had a chance. Right? So, I mean, it still can create drama. It can still create tension, right? But I'd like to think that people who are writing games think about this stuff, right?
But it feels like detached attention that I have no freaking control over. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I know crap could happen. You could drop your torch, or something. Water could dump on it, or whatever situation could happen. On the roll, but I want to feel like that I have to have some at least preparatory control over. Going into an area like when we was playing Task Force Raven, you feel like you got to prep before you go into the area, and then you got to execute. So that's fun, gather intel and then make sure you got your appropriate weapons and go in there and do what you got to do. So that is part of the intent of the game, is to give you that feeling. So
then, staying along the lines of this conversation about design intent and mechanics, Mongoose Traveler, what's its design intent? And does its mechanics support it wholly?
I think the mechanics are really elegant in a way that it isn't really intrusive. I mean, before we had a conversation about boons and bangs, that was the only really thing that I felt like maybe could be relegated to a modifier. Like you said, you make a fair point on that, but there is something about it. Like even when you have so many movements, it's kind of like AP points in the game. But you get your main movement and you get a minor movement, but it's not really anything that breaks it. It makes it feel more so. I guess with the setting and the theme of the game, more so appropriate. It feels like you're locking in your gun, or you're setting up behind a certain cover to do whatever. And everybody's going around the table. I'm breaking out my gun, locking it up, and run it over and get behind the cover to set up and then aim.
Yeah, there's some simulation. There's a little bit of simulationism there, but it seems too the design intent is to have that through details, but
it goes along with
an elegant curved bell, a bell curve with skills and attributes that impact play. But for me, I see when the minute I created a character in Traveler, I was aware again instantly of its genre, instantly of its atmosphere, its themes, its what it was about. But at the same time, that this was a role-playing game. This was more about role-playing than the game itself. This is more about the less gamey elements in role-play. Be a character, buy into this idea of what you are, who you are on a ship doing these things. And I think its mechanics support that.
Yeah. What I meant by the elegancy of it is mainly it's just 2d6 and you're rolling. Everything isn't so hard. You're trying to hit a target number. Mm-hmm. And if you've got a skill in a certain area, which the skills are broad enough to where, to me, like I said, I don't look at skills like, I know there's some like in Forbidden Lands and, all the way going back, but the earlier the time period, the less I'm more, like, skills mean a lot more than me, are more valid in a futuristic game.
Yeah, the more complex society, the more complex and specialized society, the more you require skills. I'm a doctor, but I'm not I don't want my GP doing brain surgery.
Yeah, exactly.
So we need a brain surgeon doing brain surgery. So to me, the more specialized a thing, the more we need skills. So if we're talking about a military game or a futuristic game or a modern society, when I look at something like D&D, we're literally fighters. I mean, we are a fighters capable of, for the most part, of hunting and of making a fire and of sustaining his. But there's not a lot of complicated shit going on in when we're walking around in sandals and a loincloth with a leather jerkin, right? There's not a lot of complicated technology that we would need a skill for, right? So you can say, well, fishing is a skill and hunting is a skill. Sure, right. So you could do that in D&D. You could have said, okay, what are the skills for the loincloth wearing barbarian? Hunting, language, right? But certainly, I agree with you. The more specialized the level of technology, the more we got to have skills because they're difficult jobs.
Yeah, because it's like in old school, your class or your profession kind of bounds up your skill set and what you do, but the rest of it, like people were used to living off the land or people were used to do it, whatever. So they could be kind of assumed.
But that also tells you what D&D is about. Original D&D is not about campfires. It's not about hunting. Because nowhere in the rules does it say you can hunt and forage. Nowhere in the rules does it say you fish. So anyone who sits down to play old D&D going, where are the skills? Dude, there are no skills because that ain't what the game's intent is. Yeah. The only skill that matters in D&D is killing shit, really.
Oh, yeah.
And every rule is around killing shit.
It's a battle sim. But, I mean, these right here, basically it summarizes in you got a difficulty level, you got modifiers, that could be added, and you got a boon and bane thing, right? So that's it in 2d6, and then you just work off of that. And even like I said, ship combat is still that,
right? Yeah,
what I mean?
They just change it from personal damage and personal movement to vehicle damage, vehicle movement, personal weaponry versus vehicle weaponry. So the rule doesn't change; it's just what's represented, individuals or ships, right? Yeah. Which is smart. In my opinion, that's beautifully elegant. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps the game moving along, and then everybody can get. It's not like you got to learn a different set of mechanics to handle this, or let's move over to here. Yeah, once you get those mechanics, and they're so universally like engraved, embedded into, especially just the modifiers and the target difficulty, into the hobby that everybody knows these right from. And you're dealing with 2d6, Boon and bane, like I said, was an extra thing, but that's still there. But these skills from
the other night when Jory counted down to time the opening of the airlock with the opening of the closing of the airlock, I would have said instead of saying in Traveler, I would have said to you, okay, his timing and the fact that he is going to count it down is going to give you a boon on this initiative check.
Yeah.
If Traveler has initiative. Yeah. I really am ignorant about all the details of Traveler, so I think it probably does have some level of initiative.
No, right. Yeah, it does have initiative.
But I would have given you a boon on that initiative check. Instead, I loaned his engineering +1 to your initiative roll, which unfortunately you've still failed, but he missed. But in the melee attempt, he missed. But the point is, it's how simple it would have been to me to say, oh man, okay, so Jory's he's timing you off, so you're going to get a boon.
It would have been an A.
Check.
Yeah.
And hey, I'm rolling 3 dice. I'm taking the best numbers, man. It's so easy, so easy.
It's funny, the more you talk about boons and mains, the more I'm liking it. Where at first, to kind of just relegate it, like I said, just modifier, like adjustment. Dude, and I was like, because I like to distill things down as simply as possible. But it does, like you're saying, with the intent to get, it does matter.
Yeah.
In those situations, especially if you consider like, oh, you got good tools along with it. Yeah. It's kind of like gear in Forbidden Lands.
Yeah.
They throw it together. So, but look, I mean, some of these skills, astrogation, athletics, art, diplomat,
they're broad. Art is broad, which is good because we can have the skill, but it doesn't limit us to just fine art or music, or that's cool, right? I like broad skills.
You have a specialty too that could give you one for. You get the art, and then you get another +1 if you like a performer, with instruments,
right,
writer, that kind of thing. To where you kind of you're in the arts, but then you can kind of hone in and get a little.
So I could be in the arts, but I'm a musician, or I'm a writer, or I'm a painter.
Exactly.
Yeah, sweet. Again, I don't dislike skills. I dislike skills based on the game's intent. Old D&D. Right, or even basic Moldvay D&D, or most OSRs, there is nowhere in the game where we actually use skills unless they're pertain to your class. Climbing walls, hiding in shadows, right? There's only one class in D&D that has any kind of thing like that. It's the thief, which I personally don't like in old D&D because he has all of the shit no one else has, right? So now we've invented skills for one class. It's like, okay, is D&D about this? Because it's not, but the minute I have a thief in the party, the game becomes about something other than what everyone else is doing, which is adventuring to slay shit and get treasure, right? So when we come to Traveler, we don't know what's going to come out. I mean, every game, you could be dealing with mechanical breakdowns, combat, you could be dealing with diplomacy, you could be dealing with a heist where you're stealing art. D&D, original D&D, you're not stealing no fucking art in D&D outside of we're going into the dungeon to steal art from this goblin. There is no rules for heisting, right? It's still a dungeon crawl to steal the painting from the goblin to get it back to the king. But there's no rules to support a way of doing that outside of combat. Traveler says, oh no, we got to have all these things because the intent of Traveler is varied and dynamic.
Well, look, animal is a broad skill, specialties, handling, veterinarian, and training. So depending on how you work with animals, in general, you have a boost, but if you're a specialist veterinarian, then the situation arises, then you add that plus. Mm-hmm. So you'll just be able to buy skill levels through training or whatnot, whether you apply them in your history. I think you can buy up to 5.
So how do you level up in Traveler? How do you get experience?
Well, to tell you the truth, as far as like getting experience points, I haven't even thought about that in a good while. But
well, let's face it, I only played in about 5 sessions, and I think you played in a few more before I showed up. So we didn't have a chance to get into. I don't think we accumulated a whole lot of anything really. It's definitely a game we should endeavor to play and try. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, you get your points, and then you can upgrade your skill levels. Okay. And then they just add to your, as a modifier.
Okay.
As your bonus modifier plus you for situational. Of course, I'm saying this. We always do it all the time.
Sure.
So it's just, but the skills, I like them. They're appropriate. They don't seem out of, they seem needed, and especially in situations where, like, you got an engineer that works on just engines of a ship, but then, like, I remember Sam, my character, did, but I had to pick which engine he specialized in if I wanted to go up and make the specialization, whether it was or what vehicle types, you know what I mean? So I picked the type of ship that I'm working on.
So you specialized in lawnmower engines, which didn't help a whole lot at Grand Adventure.
That's so funny because that's what I was just doing, and my lawnmower went out because So I was out there working on it before I came in here.
And don't you wish that you had a skill in fixing lawnmower engines, brother? I mean, here you are at 53 years old going, fuck, I should have taken some lawnmower engine classes.
You know, back in the 80s, we used to do this stuff, you know, is in the backyard with our dads and stuff, but then the next door neighbor, he walks over. You know, and he's an old guy. And
see, now that would be, and that would be a boon for you to fix the lawnmower because someone's come over to help you. It's a boon.
It was. He took the thing out and blew it over, and then
so your skill level shit. The difficulty here is going to be a 9, but fortunately you got a boon because somebody who's not a moron about this comes over to help. Right? It's beautiful, man. I love it. It is Traveler in a nutshell. You just described it. It's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what happened. But I mean the array of like animals. I'm looking through some of them right now. You know, from the different types of.
That's not fair. You actually have the book in front of you. I gotta toggle away to my PDF. Like, that's beautiful. Yeah.
It's like to me whenever you know because I'll get into especially if you're into science or whatnot, and conceiving life forms or what may be out there, or you know, just imagine. Because, like I said, when you go to a new planet, it's basically going to be like, well, Dune has these worms, and they have this and that. So you can create a whole planet as just one culture, and you know, or a couple of cultures,
sure.
And one environment. But and you can kind of create from a Genesis point. Something wholly new if you get into that stuff. Like I could do silicon-based life forms, or I could do, you know what I mean, anything like that. You'd have to go on that planet and deal with it. To me, I don't know. It's like a leveling up of doing that, like with just organic beings in space and what you can imagine would develop. That isn't just more like a fantasy kind of.
I mean, I would love. I mean, exactly. I mean, obviously, the minute you change genres, it opens up. It can open up wider possibilities. Obviously, right? However, there's no limit to fantasy. I mean, you can have unicorns or giant apes. You know, so. But I don't know the chronological timeline of the advent and the publication of games, but for me, let's just for argument's sake, Tunnels and Trolls, I think, and D&D were the two first probably ever published, right? And they were both fantasy games that did things completely different. One is a dice pool, right? And D&D is obviously what D&D is. Most people know what that is, Tunnels and Trolls. But then we had MERP roll up, we had Traveler roll up. I think Paranoia showed up in the 80s, right? If I remember right. We had, of course, TSR started releasing stuff like, Advanced D&D, and then, of course, I think Advanced D&D and Holmes certainly came out close. That would have been in the 70s there, late 70s, early, maybe 80. I can't remember exactly when AD&D showed up, but Holmes was kind of like to get them into so they can get into AD&D. There was no an expert set of Holmes. It was here. This is D&D. Yeah. If you want to get serious, go get AD&D, right? Then they started putting out basic boxes and things like that in the early 80s. But, I mean, chronologically, when we're talking about the giants that have quite literally were the foundations, the bedrock foundations of our hobby, it is D&D. I think it is Traveler. I want to say MERP, but I can't remember when MERP rolled out. That might have been Rollmaster, the D100. Oh, RuneQuest. RuneQuest would have been the D100. I think RuneQuest is right up there as a bedrock foundational alternative to Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then of course things just built. I mean, there became all kinds. Then I don't know when the World of Darkness stuff, Vampire, Werewolf, when those things started rolling out. I would say that was late 80s, early 90s. Everything those started rolling out as alternatives to the D20, AD&D, guys, right? It's fascinating when you think about it. Our hobby, think about this. Our hobby is 50 years old.
Oh yeah, I know.
Honestly,
it's a lifetime.
If we're talking about when we're talking about something that was not only, I won't say invented, because I'm sure there were games like charades and there are games that go way back, but let's just, if we're talking about the birth of the hobby and the coinciding with the publication of somebody who attempted to say, here's this thing we're doing in the garage in Geneva, Wisconsin, here's this thing, right? And then the birth of companies that said, hey, that's what we do. We write role-playing games. We offer up alternatives. I think there are only so many that are still inspirational, are still bedrock foundations. People are still playing them today, right? 40 years later, guys still playing Traveler.
Yeah, that's what's amazing. Yeah. You know, what does that? What, you know, to get a secure player base that maintains over that length of time, you know, especially, I mean, granted, these were early games and they were top of their, you know, top tier games that everybody gravitated toward. Whatever. Right now, we just got.
They might have been the only choice, and they might have been the only choice. I mean, how many competitors to Traveler were there really? Star Frontiers. Gary, they had that weird kind of time travel game. Did TSR, the one I own? That anyway, go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah. I was just saying that, but aside from that, even the fact that you may say, well, it was basically the best of what was on offer from the minimal list that was on offer then. Even at that point, they would have dropped off whenever other games started appearing, because there's been a lot of games since then. Oh. So there has to be some kind of longevity that these games have. Why do they have them? You know, is it just necessarily player based or what people are used to? Maybe to a certain extent, but I think that ultimately, there has to be something to the game.
Yeah.
Too. You can't just dismiss that and be like, it's not.
Oh no. You know. Yeah, the experience is not only worth having, it is the experience that they're comparing everything else to. So people who experience D&D, they didn't just go out and buy the alternative because, hey man, I want to do sci-fi. And they went across the street and purchased a sci-fi game that used the same D20 mechanics. No. Traveler said, no, fuck no. Everything is different. The dice are different. It's a curve. It's science fiction. I mean, it wasn't just a different genre. It was a completely different engine, system, genre. The whole package was completely different than Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the people who said, first of all, I'd rather do sci-fi than fantasy, they're going to immediately say, if this is my only option, let me grab this thing. But then there was a certain experience that came out of that you would compare everything to. Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure Shauner, again, he may even talk about this. I'm sure he pretty much compares every role-playing game, science fiction role-playing game, to Traveler to some degree.
To Traveler, yeah. Afterwards, yeah. There's, I don't know, that reluctance that you said from getting into it was there early on with me, because, I mean, not to mention that most people, you probably have to have certain types of people that would get into sci-fi where everybody was more readily getting into Dungeons and Dragons. There's big games I'd get and sit on the table and nobody wanted to play anything besides D&D or whatever.
Yeah, see, I would have been, when I found Traveler as a kid, and I didn't buy it, I mean, I only had so much allowance, and I didn't know, and I can honestly say it kind of went over my head. I looked at books and immediately compared them to what I knew, and if it didn't seem familiar, I tended to say, I don't know about this, and then I would just buy whatever TSR put out, and same thing, we'd either play it or I'd go, oh shit, I don't want to try to figure this out. So I wasn't lazy, but I certainly was a little ignorant, and I certainly was intimidated as a kid, right?
Yeah, I was about to say intimidated. Me, it was like a tech manual that you go,
bingo.
Oh, I would love to know this, but I don't think I'm ready yet.
But there is no doubt, if I played Traveler today, like I did with you guys, or I was going to sit down to play Traveler today, or I was going to play as a player or run a Traveler, I would be irritated if someone gave me Star Wars. I don't see Traveler as Star Wars. I'd be irritated if they tried to use Traveler for Star Wars. I'd be irritated if they tried to use Traveler for Star Trek. However, I think Traveler has design intent that really supports certain Star Trek atmosphere and elements. Yeah, I would be irritated if somebody tried to use Traveler as a sci-fi fantasy. I would say, no, y'all, you need to pick a different game engine for that, because that ain't what Traveler's about.
Yeah, yeah, I know. The fact is, even inside the universe, being open like it is, you can go in any direction, however your party wants to do, or whatever you want to do. And I love the fact, like when we were playing, you know, and a lot of people don't like the bean count or whatever, but Eloy loved keeping the logs of our money.
Yeah.
You know, that we were making to make sure that we could, you know, budget for fuel and for whatever.
But that's part of the design intent.
Yeah,
dude, this isn't D&D where you just need gold so you can level up, right? Which is why later they said, well, you only get to level up if you spend the gold, to try to force people to spend the gold, right?
Yeah,
Traveler says, no, all this shit is based on an economy. You're going to have to, if you want that, the GM should say, you got to buy it.
It made sense within it. It gives you a legitimate reason to go do what you're doing.
Yes.
You got to freaking have food in your cupboards. You got to have fuel to get to here or there.
I would argue, because it's simulating. It's simulating life.
Economy, yes.
It's simulating life in space as a traveler, which is appreciated, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could go concepts like Firefly, or either Cowboy Bebop, as far as like just the if you was a mercenary, a bounty hunter, or trying to get money in some way, or you could be a smuggler like Han Solo trying to get something across a certain area, or just a merchant, or any kind, or somebody who's a lawman who's tracking down all this and trying to follow leads on it. So just that you could go off in any direction. And not just be like a party that's delving in the dungeons or whatever. To me, opens up more of a engagement into, I'd love to do this, or I'd love to do that.
Well, Traveler, I hate to say it, there'll be guys that are getting angry and scream at the screen. Traveler is a character first game. Your character matters, or you wouldn't create the fucking character the way you do it if it didn't matter. Therefore, you're going to play a character doing a thing in this simulation type D&D. Your character don't mean shit until they start leveling up and they survive a little bit. I mean, D&D really is designed as you pick a avatar. I'm going to be the healer, priest. You're going to be the magic user. I'm going to be the right. They are, and your character can be played. We can play any level. I mean, I do A-Rig, man. I get in the shoes of A-Rig and I play it full bore. But the game doesn't demand it of me. D&D, old D&D, does not demand you do anything other than make decisions as a thief.
Yeah.
I roleplay everything I do because I love roleplaying. But there are no rules to say this shit matters, right? Traveler does. It does just in its character design, I think.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah, definitely. I think it sets you up for that. Yeah. Like you said, with the design of the character.
Yeah.
I want to make a little point because I flipped it over from where I had it on the animals, the best year. One thing I like about it right here is this behavior. You could have your carrion eater type creatures. Creatures that chase you down, or like wolves or whatever. But there is grazers. Grazers. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like pouncers that come out of
herbivores.
Trappers. It's like a trap spider or something like this Venus flytrap. The thing is pointing you the types of ways that you could get entangled. Yeah, because when you walk out, you could just, like, there's a cow over there, but you're walking into an environment and with animals, even though it might be on a different planet,
that's right,
that have different behaviors. Right. Some of them ain't coming at you automatically like everything that sees you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So I just saw that, glanced down, and I was like, that's interesting that they would point that out. And for whenever you're designing an animal, how does it work within its own, within its own ecosystem?
Habitat, right, within its own habitat, right. Yeah. And is it a predator, or is it I'm a starving, hungry bear predator, where it would, if it had to, maul your ass and eat you because it had no choice? But generally bears they aren't going to scrap. They don't want to get hurt in nature any more than you do. So a bear has to be sick or desperate to generally maul a human being, right?
Yeah, or if you agitate
so there should be
in a certain way, don't go around it.
Right, bingo, yeah. And I think,
but that's just appreciative of me that they would make that distinction. Yeah. That whenever you do that, realize everything just isn't out to get you, or to be some kind of a target for you. That you're in a living world, and you need to, put these attachments.
It's
to these
that level of thought and detail, again, that provides intent for what Traveler is supposed to be.
Yeah.
As opposed to everything's your enemy, kill it. Yeah.
To me, that adds, that adds a level of immersion when you feel like you're in a work, like if you was walking. What is that game? Monster Hunter. And you'll see if you get two creatures together, they start attacking each other if they're that type of creature, So it feels like you're in a world more so that is alive, so therefore it's immersive, So I like that everything just isn't, there's a world beyond your own nose. And anything when I'm involved in the game, whether it be just creature design that isn't like totally riveted on me or why I'm here, or NPCs that have their own life and things that's going on beyond that really make me feel like I'm dipped into a world where whether I want to stay under the radar or whether I want to make a clamor, I'm still part of it.
Exactly.
And that's important whenever you're,
it's exactly right.
Giving out that world.
And it is those subtle details in a rule book that actually are meant or should be, again, hopefully authors think about this. If you mention weapons and you mention ammo in your game, then ammo, the intent of the game is ammunition matters. You shouldn't hand wave off ammunition as a GM or as a player, right? They won't put ammunition in the game if it doesn't matter. If it matters, there's an intent there on what they expect you and how they expect you to play the game. All of those subtle details, all of those subtle guidance, I wouldn't call them guidance, but if you read a rule book in its complete whole, contextually, you should come away with understanding. There's a way and a thing this is meant to be. But most people say, hey, man, I've been playing D&D for 30 years. I'm going to play Traveler. They play Traveler just like D&D. Well, it ain't even remotely the same game. You got to play it, I think, based on its intent, its design and its intent. Right.
And you really don't get an intent until you read the game because, like, look down, just looking down, I said, citizens of higher technology, tech level 8 or higher, planets often use electronic credits. Until then, you got to start barding. You know what I mean? You get down. It makes that dividing line of saying, like, what is it used for? What is it?
Right.
So you might have to have
don't land on a TL4 planet thinking you can spend your credits. You're going to have to barter.
Yeah.
So the guy you're talking to is like, credits? What are you talking about? But you know what? What is that on your hip? I would like to. I'll trade you for that on your hip. What is that? Oh no! See, I can't let you have this. This is a tech level 8 weapon. Yeah. What is a tech level 8 weapon? Dude, I want that. I'll give you 2 furs for that weapon. Right? I mean, this is a fascinating dilemma, right? If you land on a TL4 planet with TL8 gear and shit on, you're like from fucking future, man. You're like from way the fuck out there, right? I mean, those create amazing dilemmas, conflicts.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like anything, whether I'm counting my arrows, anything that makes a situational conflict or change, that can come up. Not like what I was saying about the Traveler giving so much lore and so much history and so much, like, you're right. You don't really know the intent of a game until you read it in its whole capacity. The games that we was doing as kids, if we didn't know why a rule was there, just cherry picking what we thought was fanciful, and then it left out certain whole blocks of experience that we didn't even know was there and don't even have a concept of. But so when they design a game, if you have a game that's really designed well, then it does add that, even with all the information. Like right now, I'm on the equipment thing, or with the animals of how they work on different planets. Then it makes it more immersive and alive that things work for a reason.
Right.
And a lot of this looks to me that I can look at this game and I say there's an economy for a reason, and you can interact with that economy. Legitimately, you can interact with the ecosystems. With the animals in there, the flora, the fauna, you can interact with the equipment that you have and the different tech levels on there. So you got to know. I love having that you feel like you're dipped in and immersed into a world where things make sense. Because if they don't make sense, it starts breaking my immersion. Of, why would they do that? I don't get it.
Right.
So if you actually read this, I think that they did a brilliant job with.
Sure. Well, and I don't think any of those
very large.
Right, and I don't think any of those features detract from in-character immersive play. I mean, there's no mechanics that get in the way of
correct.
playing.
The mechanics are elegantly simple and beautiful, and you just rely on them. But like they have to have the page count to sell the book, and it's filled with information that matters. That if you pull the information out, you can make a more logically consistent, immersive world that ain't going to be making the players go, what the hell?
Well, and this is why I've always said you should read, in my opinion, if a game book is not a generic system like GURPS, Savage Worlds, Genesis, there are generic systems out there. when a game is written with a lore, with the IP, with a world setting, with world building, with rules, with mechanics, should be from top to bottom, all of it complements itself. And if it doesn't, something's wrong. This is a lethal game, but then everybody has 6 healing surges and 400 hit points. It ain't lethal. If your rules don't support lethality, it ain't a lethal game. I don't care what you say it is, right? This game is meant to be character-driven. Then you probably shouldn't have made characters so easy to kill, right?
Yeah. No, I know.
if you don't want zero-sum power bloat gaming, then don't use hit points that just escalate, because it's just going to turn into huge hit point battles, right? Use wounds if you want it to be relative, right? Wounds create a relative lethality to the world, which, I'm a human being. I can only suffer so much, period. I don't all of a sudden, and I'm not 50 and now at 400 HP, right? When I was 18, my relative survivability as an 18-year-old man is no different at 53. Matter of fact, it's worse because I'm slower, my knee's bad, I got a hurt shoulder. I actually should be seeing my hit points go down as I age in D&D, not up. No, really. I mean, if you start to think about what are you trying to simulate? Are you trying to simulate this thing? Because if what you're doing is creating this, and this is what I love about Symbaroum. We get better and more competent as we learn, but our hit points are still the same, dude. That same Rage Troll in Session 1 could have killed Shig, that could still kill Shig after he's leveled up 5 times, right? And I love that. I love the fact that Shig may be more powerful, but 2 shots from that Rage Troll, Shig's dead, right? That's cool, right?
Well, I'm on several things, but this game takes that into account.
Well, and I think in Traveler, the other really cool thing in Traveler is as you take injury, it affects your attributes, right?
Oh, yeah. It takes your attributes
you actually down. Get shot, your strength actually is worse. Your agility is actually worse because you've got a bullet in you, right?
Yeah. You take those off, and you get 0. But I mean, whenever you're doing the character development, as far as the best of my thing, whenever you are at a certain age, you get reductions automatically when you reach them. It's just aging process. Right. So you're having to deal with it. It's the same way like those dark places you're just trying to make it to retirement. This right here is still stabbing you out, but whenever you reach a certain age, you're dropping off those things automatically because of your age. But anyway, as far as D&D, that's where to me, like in the early game, like Holmes, I think it says like they're wounds when you take hit points. It's funny because in our games when we played them, we looked at them like wounds. You're taking physical damage to your body, and then that whole argument about it being like mojo, it's just working you down. And I can see that, like if you're back in the corner, that back and forth thing to where it's wearing you down as far as your fighting capacity, and then whenever that final roll hits, they've hit a vital organ or something, right?
Yeah, they've cut your head off. You're done. Yeah.
Where
you finally got so beat down and fatigued that you became vulnerable, and they drove the spear through your heart, or they cut your head off, or the dragon bit you in 2 or whatever. Right? You can narratively understand it. It's abstract.
Yeah.
But
to me, that came out after the fact, because initially it was meant to be like chipping off or wounds as you get.
All it was literally was like a war game. I have an army over here with 8 soldiers, and every time there was a hit, I would lose a stack off my army man, right? So my army went from 8 points down to 1 point to dead. My army was eviscerated. So hit points were very much like an army in a war game.
Yeah, it's like I'm getting chunks out of me, and then if you hit me with like a powerful take away 4 hit points, I just got a huge chunk taken out of me. So I just find it funny how they could be construed 2 different ways. And
absolutely, absolutely, and it's because it's abstract. It's like saves. I've said before, saves. I love save because save is completely abstract. Save is a luck roll. Save is an immunity check. Yeah. Save is a you can literally in your head, imagine what a save looks like, right? It's an abstract concept, but it's really a luck roll. You're just making a fucking luck roll. A dragon breath hits you. Oh, you've been bit by a poisonous spider. well, let's make a roll to see if your body survives this poison, right? So save is a very abstract concept. Hit points is abstract, but it creates a particular game experience that might not jive necessarily with what you want in a fantasy adventure. Is my point.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're trying to do. I mean, that's what I said. You can't cherry pick D&D. You have to say it is what it is as a whole, whether you like it or not. It's as a whole. And again, I always say D&D. It's really sloppy because there's D&D 5th edition, D&D 4th edition. I mean, but I'm really referring to the foundational roots of when I talk about the old D20 formula, right? So I'm talking about the roots because we're talking about classic game here, Traveler and D&D. It creates an intent whether Gary Gygax and company meant it or not, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. A little thing about like critical hits, because whenever you have an effect, if you roll over a certain thing, so when you roll over and you're adding it to it, if it's like a 6 or more, whatever, it's a critical. So in that respect, you can have a critical hit. But this.
So you mean a 6 points over what you needed? So if I needed 6 and I rolled a 12, that would be a critical. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Well, it has that effect. That 6. Anytime you get a 6 plus, it goes into the realm of something just happened that's critical. But it's not so abstract because it's a critical hit location for a vehicle. And I just flipped this over to this page. Okay. Like, then you roll a D12 to find, or 2D6 to find out what it is.
Okay.
2 to 3, they've hit the fuel area. 4, the power plant. 5, they've taken out a weapon. You know what I mean? So it does have that legitimacy. Like they just took off your arm, or they they just hit the cargo, the occupant's drive system.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I love about RuneQuest is you can lose an arm.
Oh yeah.
You can. We had a great battle with the Cyclops in the RuneQuest I ran for the local group. And they went after its legs, right? They wanted, so they literally were targeting its right leg. This giant Cyclops with a huge hammer. It was so much fun because they could tactically say, just take out that right leg. So they all would try to hit its. It was, it's joy, right? It takes time and it's cumbersome and it's a long combat, but dude, it was rewarding as shit when they brought that Cyclops down. It was out of a Harryhausen film, dude. The way they brought down that giant in RuneQuest.
That's always intrigued me about RuneQuest. I've never played it myself.
Love it.
But I heard that, and I love the fact, like I said, anything that can change your situation. In this thing, what if you're in your, and that's the picture.
Yeah.
Like of the wooden thing, maybe some kind of a not a tank, but a little home vehicle or whatever. It's got a gun on it or whatever, and your crew is being surrounded. Well, what if your communications get hit? You know what I mean? And then it's down, and you can't contact the big ship, and it makes situations that you have to jockey around.
Yep.
That's why things like this you discover when you read a book that you say adds something to it.
Well, anything that inspires your imagination. Right? Because you read that, and all of a sudden your imagination goes, oh, dude, that would be cool to see that happen. All of a sudden, again, we're elevated to a different level of immersion, even in reading the book, right? Where we are actually, it's invoking our imagination, seeing the rule. The rule's relevant, or the rule is good because it invokes our imagination, right? Now, I can play AIA, single dice 6. We've done it with 2061. I provide all the detail. You provide all the motivation of the character. And we just roll a d6, to solve a problem. We're bringing all of that imaginative stuff to it. But when there's a rule that compartmentalizes, communications have been damaged. It's not my decision. It's not your decision. And we now have to both, as a referee, as a player, as a group, and as a referee, all of us have to honor communications are down.
Yeah.
As opposed to just saying, hey, communicate, which you can still do in a game that requires none of this. But there is something, there's something to seeing it literally in rules that open up that idea that, wow, let's hope our gun doesn't get knocked. You get into, I can see it now. I can just see us all in a Jeep with a turret, and Jose's driving the fucker. I could just see this happen in a Traveler game. Jose's character's driving the Jeep, your character's, on the horn trying to get Jim to fly the ship and meet us as we're trying to outrun some pirates, right, in a Jeep. And, Noxon's in the back seat, hiding, and I could just see Eloy on the turret. And every time he rolls that critical table, we're going, I hope to God he didn't knock the turret out, right? I mean, it invokes this action that's beyond our want. It's going to direct the narrative, not so much us. Now, we're going to deal with the narrative of the turret getting knocked out, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's like in here, like there's actually two. Okay, they got a lot of different tables that you can reference and you can utilize. If you want to roll that 2d12, you can say it hit my fuel, right? Hit 2 or 3. It hits your fuel, and then you can roll a d6, and it says 1 fuel at least got out in 20 hours. You got 20 hours before.
Nice. So it's a slow leak.
2
2
is 10 hours. So you got to go, oh crap, we got to get to that. We're not going to make it before we get to this planet.
And what is the design intent of that? What does that prove? It proves the GM should never, the players are in a particular situation in which the GM better be noting how far out they are from their destination. The players should be thinking about how far. So it creates an element of also, you have a little planning in what you're trying to do. So all of a sudden, we don't have enough fuel to drive where we got to go. We're going to be hiking for days.
Which is that whole economy thing. You got to be aware of resource management, and not in a way this mechanically like I've got to weigh this sword. How fast can it move? It's not that. It's just situational resource management. Do we have enough? And especially like a traveler. Okay, we know we got enough fuel to get there, but then obviously we run into a pirate midway, and then he damages our fuel system, and all of a sudden we don't. Now we have to make a detour over to this other little planet and try to get refueled.
Stop at the local gas station and get that sucker fixed.
So to me, anything that mechanically gives weight to changing situations and not just becomes cumbersome, just roll. Oh crap! That means that's just like checking a freaking computer. Roll that D6.
So this is a fine opportunity to ask then. After talking about immersion and you and I experiencing the difference in Modern Age for 2061 as we slowly move from more complex games that had these things, Modern Age has a lot of these features, we would slowly remove features that we felt got in the way of immersion and got in the way of the narrative play on the ground, in the shit. This is live. What you're saying is none of that mechanics matter. You should be able to do this in Traveler. Or do these mechanics invoke a particular psychological immersion that is in particularly more valid than, say, Simple?
To me, because of the technological level, whenever I am rolling that D6 to find out the damage, it's just like me consulting a computer. So I don't feel like it doesn't break immersion so much, then it does feel like I'm looking up information. It doesn't have to be immediate there, like grabbing me by the ears and saying, this is what's going on. Because you could be immersed in anything.
Yep.
You could be immersed in like looking up information, and in that moment, because what you're focused on is that realization.
Right.
Oh crap, guys! Sam turns around and looks at the rest of the crew, knocks him.
Right.
The fuel. We've only got 10 hours of fuel left before we're freaking down. And then what do we do?
Yep. And what you're describing there is something I've talked about. I think Ivan and I have talked about this, or at least Ivan and I have shared this observation about gaming, especially D&D and OSRs. Yeah. We weren't concerned. I don't think when you play those games, we are so concerned about the immediate first-person immersion so much as that wow moment when we stop for a second. I mean, there are games that I would stop and say, guys, do you realize let's just look back on what's just happened. That, because you can't help but say, do you guys realize? Let's just stop for a second and reflect on what the fuck we're looking at. We're in an alley. This has happened. Jurgen is. The great example. There are moments where you are just completely surprised at the emergent play and the emergent story that comes out of this D20 dice rolling kind of chaos. And you almost have to stop and say, dudes, let's just reflect on what's happened in the last 5 minutes of actual play. Bill's down, face down in the mud, dead, sword in his back, and you can't help but stop and want to reflect back on what the narrative is versus creating the narrative as you play from a first-person perspective. If that makes sense, when you're looking up the damage to the vehicle on your charts, you can't help but then put that in context. You're going to go, oh man, the fuel's been hit, and everybody at the table is going, what does that mean? And we're all immersed in the what does that mean? As our characters begin to say, oh shit, our fuel line's been hit, right? I mean, is that as immersive? I think it can be. If it wasn't, role-playing would have never become what it is. Because not everybody plays in a first-person perspective, right? Or
it focuses your immersion on looking at how the situation has changed.
Right.
So everybody sits on pins and needles going like, what just happened?
Right.
Let me look it up.
Right.
I roll that D6. Oh, crap, we just lost freaking that. Like one of them says cargo.
Right.
Roll a 1, 10% of your cargo destroyed. He just hit the freaking back, and you're trying to be a merchant and transfer that stuff, but then 10% of your money's just down.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And you know what it does? It's kind of like I was talking about pressure. Having pressure in those dark places. You have two things that make your character vulnerable in those dark places. Hit points are damage, strength. Your strength goes to 0, you are dying. At -2, you're dead. So there's always that. Every game has this vulnerability, life-death vulnerability. And then some games add a sanity vulnerability or a pressure vulnerability, or something like this adds, let's not kid ourselves, a value vulnerability, right? Because we're not only trying to survive, we're trying to make money. We're trying to succeed at a task that is going to affect whether we can get our ship out of impound or not.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Rules that does that, because that is what motivates you to play.
Yeah.
It's keeping yourself alive in a real world resource management type thing. So whenever I look at this, if we buy one of these, like it has all kind of different vehicles in here, like an air raft, and it says it can hold so much. So therefore, I know that I can make so much money by putting so much of the cargo, or it's going to take me 3 trips to go from my, you know what I mean, to drop this off at the local farmer.
Well, yeah, I mean, so, again, the group has to decide. Hey, man, we got 16,000 credits. Do we buy the big air raft or the little air raft, right? And if we get the big air raft, we can haul out the whole golden statue, not just the gold pieces.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that to be, it isn't a distraction more so, but it gives necessary information to see what you're to plan out what your situation has a lot.
And this begs the question that I think we never discuss in role playing, right? The motivation. Yeah. Why are we here? Why are we doing it? And it begs that grander question of role playing, right?
Yeah.
I think those things can be imparted by the mechanics or the system, the rules, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably better than a game that lacks those things, right? Now we can have amazing immersive stories, or I don't even call them. I hate using the term story because it sounds like we're telling a tale. What I mean is, it's just about the story. It's just about the outcome. 2061 was about the actions and the adventure and the outcomes, but those outcomes were quite literally here and now. Right? It's why I did 2061 and post-apocalyptic, because everything was about survival. Right? You're not, and you got to prioritize what's most important. So when I said let's do 2061, when I created the post-apocalyptic world of 2061 Denver, it was to put Nash in a right here, right now. It's about prioritizing what I got to do right this second. You're not thinking about the big picture of collecting money. It's post-apocalyptic Denver. Money's worthless, right? So we're putting a motivation on something different, which is to experience post-apocalyptic Denver as a marshal cop facing these responsibilities, which is Dark Age of Man to some degree. It's about being people in a place with responsibilities, or prioritizing responsibilities, right? Yeah. Traveler, D&D, there's another thing. D&D, it seems to be mostly about leveling up so you can do grander shit, right? So your motivation is, whether we like it or not, murder hoboism if we follow the rules for leveling up. I don't play D&D that way. I play it from a character's perspective. I don't really care if my character is collecting treasure or, right, except unless I want to buy something or obtain something. But Traveler is giving you a context in which you're going to be a character in this thing, and the context of those systems and mechanics are going to reprioritize what you're doing as a character.
Yeah.
So again,
now, system
matters in this sense. System matters, right?
Oh, definitely. I think it's more of an evolved form of role play. That I don't see that the mechanics are intrusive. I do see that there's tables, and they could be informative because a lot of what we're not just killing things. What we're trying to do is look at the overall picture of, do we have and can we do this? Like you said, or can we get it done?
Right.
Now, when I'm looking at all that I have in front of me, like if I have this, say I'm a lawman that's trying to intercept this smuggler, and I'm trying to hit him and take out his gun system or whatever like that, but what if it accidentally rolls and hits his cargo bay, and then I'm trying to retain that cargo to have proof against who that smuggler, you know what I mean, or whatever.
Right.
It's situations that you can use these tables to roll on, and it changes situationally the overall picture, and it gives you, to me, it gives me something that I have to contend with on a larger scale. Like when we back up, like you said, there's moments when you back up and you look at everything. Okay, what are we dealing with now? Mm-hmm. That's all it's doing with these charts, mm-hmm. and with this lore and, mm-hmm. and these equipments that we have. They're readily usable by the GM and the players mm-hmm. to say, this is what you got, this is what you can get. Mm-hmm. These are all statted out. To me, it's not invasive as far as like telling me mm-hmm. that I need to stop and roll and check and do this 100 times over. Right. It doesn't impede my role playing, correct. But it does. It is there for me to say, okay, what situation are we looking at before we head out from this planet to go here? Right.
Well, what do we have? What do we need? And something like charts, they inform play. The GM isn't making an arbitrary decision that you blew up the cargo thing. The players don't get just to automatically say, oh, I'm shooting at his tires and nothing else bad can happen to us. If I miss, I miss, but I'm shooting at his tires. Now, you might be able to target, which makes it harder, et cetera, et cetera. But the charts also create an environment in which we're all subject to what happened. Even the referee is subject to what happened, right? Something like those dark places. The success, partial success, and failure allows the complications. So instead of using a chart, I can say, well, you guys are trying to stop this guy. He's outrunning you in a cart, and he's got his cargo, and you want that cargo. And Dale says, I'm going to fire the ray gun at this guy, and you fail. There's partial success. And you completely fail. That gives me the GM fiat to say, well, you've blown the cargo section of this cart all to hell, right? And so I'm still creating that, but I'm doing it based on dice, but it's not a chart, right?
Exactly, and that's what I was going to say earlier. It's not that you can't have these type of games with the minimalist thing. Yeah, it's nice if you would like to have them, especially if you would like to roll. Let's see what happens.
Well, I think a game like Traveler, again, it fits into the design intent of what Traveler is. So these charts matter, right? Boons and banes are what are affecting your the reality that you're targeting with a turret. But I'm going to give you a boon here because the target has an auto target reticule on it. So you're going to get a boon to all your shots with this turret right now during combat, right? It's very easy to pick up, right? But the boon and the bane affects your roll. The chart's going to dictate somewhat out of your control what you hit and how bad you hit it, and all subject to success or failure to some degree, right?
But, it's easy to adjudicate, and like I said, the bulk of it is the information that it lays out with what it offers, and it is geared toward someone who likes to do some resource management, which I would say in the overall scheme of things, like work in an economical world, which to me is a little bit more immersive. Like I said earlier, whether you're living in a biosphere with animals that seem logically in their movements, or you're dealing with some kind of ambassadors and nobles and some kind of political thing that is working. It's got easy, to me, it's dense in those matters, but not the interface between those matters and you playing isn't so convoluted that you got to go through, a myriad of steps to get there. It's more of a simple thing.
Yeah, intuitive. It's a little more intuitive, but it lends a level of credibility and authenticity to the idea that we are gaming. I've said it before. Role play. There's role play, and then there's role play games, and some role play games have a lot of gamey elements, almost too much gamey elements. Some are very role play heavy, and all we're doing is rolling to see if it's true or false. That's a very low gamey element. And gamey elements can be as immersive based on your mastery of the system, right? Whether you've memorized those charts. How much more immersive would it be for Dell after 15 years of playing Traveler that you've memorized those charts? When Joe rolls a 3, hey, hit the fuel line, and we're moving, right? Because you've memorized those charts. So it can be just as immersive because of your mastery of the gamey portion of the thing. Or it can be low impact. Like this is a curve, fairly low impact, elegant system, right? Which allows for quick resolution and continued immersive play, right? So does that add a credit? Does the system there add a credibility to why we're even bothering to call ourselves these characters on a ship doing things? Because we need money, because we're trying to, whatever the case may be, right? Does it add a level of credibility to what motivates our characters?
Oh, definitely. It's integral to the world, and what it doesn't just kind of give a hypothetical reason that motivates your character to say, okay, well, you're doing this because you want to. Literally, when you sit down, you want to do this because you have to. You see it laid out in front of you as far as like, I need to get this cargo over to this place.
Right.
It gives that work to the player too, to say, like, look, I can carry so much. We did this during play. We need to carry this. We had options of what we could do. We need to carry this stuff over. We did several runs trying to make
problem solving. And you're prioritizing and you're problem solving and you're doing it as a character with a group of characters who all have motivations versus just problem solving. How do we get across this pit, guys? Our problem solving with that dilemma is a 10-foot pole, try to run and jump it. Can we throw the grappling hook and a rope across? So we're problem solving the obstacle versus, it's a different kind of physical obstacle versus, right?
Yeah, it's large considerations that you're taking into, and even for the future. Of what like different plant, we have to get this plant, and after that we can go over here, or we could double up.
Only if the GM creates that environment, because if the GM hand waves a lot of that shit, it's the GM has to predispose to creating an environment where these variables matter.
Yeah, but I mean, like in the game here, a lot of things laid out. I haven't looked at the map in a long time. There's a map, but we knew when we were playing that if we could, we could go here and then pick up some merchandise here and then take it over there. You know what I mean? This might be a more efficient route than the other option that we have. So, just that resource management, just working economically, trying to do things, that is engaging in itself. It's like,
but I'll be honest, my joy in Traveler, if we had not had Eloy, who is willing to be the chief financial officer, the chief CEO of the group, that to me would have been tedious as fuck as a player. I would have hated tracking all that shit. Yeah,
I have to say that's a fair point you make. As far as like wanting to be immediate there, and this is what I'm trying to point out. There's an aspect that the play itself, the simplicity of the mechanics, to where, or at least the familiarity of the mechanics.
Yeah.
It doesn't impede role playing itself.
No, God.
There's an aspect of what is on offer here.
Right. I did this with Starfinder. Yeah. When I ran Starfinder for my local group for the first time, one of the things I loved about Starfinder was money mattered, and this was huge for me in Starfinder because it's a Pathfinder in space. Let's not kid ourselves. Mechanically, it's Pathfinder in space. But what I loved about it was money. Everything was fucking expensive, and they needed it. So they had to apply for a job. They actually borrowed money from a bank so they could rent a ship that would put them on a planet where they could hunt creatures and they could bring those creatures back to sell for profit. They only had so many days of the window before the loan came due. So I put a time limit on the window. They had to pay this thing back. They knew they only had so many days to capture so many creatures. And what drove them was they needed money to buy their own stuff. So that became the driving force. But then also they were going to have to pay back out of their profits the loan to borrow the ship. And so it's the same concept, right? But if Starfinder had not said implicitly in the design of that game, just a rifle, a ray rifle is like 6,000 credits. Well, they started the game off with only so many credits. They didn't even have these kind of weapons, right? It's significant. It was important, right? Think about D&D. When you roll up your 3d6 times 10 for your gold to start, what if in Moldvay a plate mill was 1,000 gold pieces? All of a sudden, it really matters to me because I'm a fighter, and dude, I want that plate mill. But with just the right roll, I can acquire plate mill right out of the gate. What else do I need in Moldvay D&D? I need a shield, a plate mill, and a weapon. That's it. There's not much else I got to do in Moldvay, which only goes up to level 3.
Yeah.
Right. So make that plate mill. If they just made plate mill in Moldvay 1,000 gold pieces, the fighter has got a hell of a lot more. There's a bigger reason why he's trying to acquire money, gold, right?
Yeah. Let me get this dog in here. Going nuts.
It's a possum. I'm sure it's chasing down a possum.
Here we go. You go in the problem is
now when you look at Traveler, like I said, on offer, it is very much like the Starfinder situation, and it doesn't have to be tedious to the point of like being over analytical. The degree of is up to the DM and the players at the table, but you do have the option of utilizing the tables and going as far as you like, because admittedly some people may like that. That to me is it. So in other words, when I'm at the table, if somebody can get really anal, retentive, and tedious about the mechanics of making a strike that inhibit my role play, that's what it's annoying. Mm-hmm. If we're doing it on the side, like he could do that stuff because he liked to do it off camera in between shopping or whatever.
Well, and we all would have had to do it, even if it had just been simple. Like, we need 10,000 credits. This is worth 12. We're good to go. Let's get back and cash this in.
It's not that huge of a deal. Or say, what are our options? But it gives you, like, in game time, you don't need to be going 100% bore. Like always. Like the adrenaline pumping, you have to be able to. I believe it's like listening to the radio. You have a slow song. You force that vessel. It's a slow song. You got to have those moments where you slow down and go, "Okay, what are we going to do next, guys?"
Yeah.
Is it just gathering around the table or planning?
Yep.
But this has a weight on it.
Yeah.
It's not like because like the way they said D&D, you just go out and you have to spend all your money. They aren't like they're pirates or something, because the pirates would just blow all their money and then go out and raid again and then go blow all their money. Well, in that capacity, to say that these are a priest and the role, it didn't seem like it made any sense whatsoever.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they're trying to voice that let's just go blow our money and be reckless and whatever to give you a reason to go out. And that to me breaks immersion, because I don't feel like I got a reason.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying about this game. It feels like you do have a genuine reason whenever that handshake gives it to you, and to say, why are you doing this? And you go, I want to go where I want to go. I want to go in this hex over here.
Well, that's why.
Because I got to make money.
Exactly. And that's why some GMs would profit up with you stumble into this small village, and the players, the first thing they do is say, what's in this village? Oh, well, it looks like an old tavern, and we're going to run over to the tavern and see what's going on. We're going to talk to the barkeep, and the barkeep says, we got a goblin problem. You guys look fit. Would you please take care of this for us? It's going to destroy our town. You try to invest the players through quests or through missions or through That's OD&D. That's hex crawling. Yeah. And the benefit for the player is, well, you're going to, of course, go on an adventure. There's going to be mystery and intrigue, but ultimately you're going to get experience points and treasure for killing these goblins, which you're going to later be able to use in a character. Gamey element, right? Leveling up your character, collecting treasure, etc. But again, GMs generally didn't just say, what do you guys want to do? They try to provide a compelling reason through narrative why you want to help this little town deal with a goblin problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, it tried to take.
So there is some player. There is some player responsibility for accepting these conceits, these tropes.
What do you think about this? Because what I'm saying is, I know that they try to justify it or try to wrap you into that way. I'm saying this has it integrated into the system already, to where you know that you have options to buy certain equipment, or you want to. In other words, it isn't the DM whispering in your ear that, wouldn't you like to go over here? Or, I need to wove this story for you to do this and that. You're already probably looking at it and going, oh crap, we need to do this. So
well, I think that starts with the intent of character gen. There was no doubt by the time I was done making Noxon, I wanted to see this son of a bitch. I wanted to get into his head. I was fully invested in who this guy was and what he was about, and I couldn't wait to put him in space. When I roll up a 3-6 straight down fighter, I don't even know, ultimately what his thing is. I'm just going to engage in whatever the GM kind of puts in front of me, and then eventually there'll be a character there, or eventually we'll have something bigger than us happening that makes us invested in the experience of coming back to these players these characters at the table, right? So Traveler's character gen design intent is saying this isn't hand-waved. This isn't. I mean, you should already be more invested in your character just from generation. I mean, Noxon lived a life before I was going to step into his shoes that made him compelling and interesting to me, and now he's going to join in this group of guys he may not fit in with. He's anti-authority. He's been in prison for 8 years. He's got to find a way to fit in with Jose and Eloy's character, and that in and of itself is compelling, right?
Yeah. Okay. This is really going to time, because, like I said, you got that the character generation. I believe, just like you're saying, sets you there. It gives you a little empathy, or at least sympathy with the character, but there's an economical, a good economical reason that he has to survive, and opportunities to be involved in different things or go wherever he wants to. So you're engaged with the character, and you're readily engaged with the opportunities that the world in this book that is offering the character. Right. That's already baked in that don't have to be kind of like given to you.
Oh no, and dude, I came to that table saying, listen, Noxon spent 8 years in prison, so he's a little agoraphobic. Being in the ship and in his chambers, he feels at home. That claustrophobic piece for him. But the minute we landed at one of those places and got out and it was a large dock with and I narrated, how Noxon, he ain't used to freedom. He ain't used to open spaces. He ain't used to big crowds. He ain't, and I'm in that mindset because I know he spent 8 years in prison. So I brought that. No, the game didn't demand I acted that way, but I knew Noxon's going to have a different attitude in these situations until he gets used to being a free man, right?
Now, what do you think? I mean, this may speak to me in particular, but I also think it transposes over the fact that, like you said, whenever you're playing a fantasy-based game, and then the guys have to. There's not much of an economical thing. Granted,
no,
you have,
which is where 90% of fantasy games that are following the D20 OSR formula completely fail. There is zero compelling reason for us to be doing what we're doing together as a party. Zero compelling reason at all, other than the gamey elements and just wanting to play a fighter with a sword and a shield right. When I look at something like Jackals, which you are a mercenary unit, you're doing mercenary. I mean, you were literally a unit of mercenaries, hard-boiled, veteran. And you're doing jobs. I mean, this is a warrior tribe of badass mercenaries who are taking on difficult tasks. And that, to me, is compelling as shit because we're all choosing. I'm thinking of this film right here. Right? Again, medieval. This starts in media res with them protecting the...
Oh, man.
It's a brilliant film.
Yeah.
Based on a true story.
I almost picked that up. This
film starts...
It has Michael Caine in it.
Yes, Michael Caine is the person they're protecting. So this starts in media res with his unit protecting the carriage from assassins. It's a genius start. Yeah. And we learn through this in media res start that these are professional fucking bodyguards. They're here to protect the bishop, and they waylay and completely fuck up this band of assassins. And that's how we learn who this cat is and who his partners are. And their job is to do these dirty deeds for these higher. And we're compelled to see why that's what these guys do, right? They don't have anything else to do. They come out of war, they come out of the Crusades, and they're like, well, fuck, the only thing we can sell is our ability to kill, our ability to defend, our ability to protect, right? And this would make a brilliant role-playing situation. We're making warriors in a mercenary group, and this is the things we do to make the money we need to make to what? To reach our motivation of retiring with land? Right? Why did Roman soldiers join the Roman army? Because they wanted to get to retirement and be gifted the land, right? That was Roman law. Yeah. When you got to retirement, you were gifted your plot of land, you could raise a family, you could grow crops, right? That was your retirement as a Roman soldier.
You had to put in your time, yeah.
So that's why you're a Roman soldier doing this shit, because what else are you going to do, right? So we can make it compelling, but they fail to make it compelling. You're just making a wizard, a cleric, a thief, and a fighter, and you're going to go off into a dungeon, which is what it's designed to do, and you have fun for the evening, dungeon crawling, right? There is no compelling reason for my fighter to do it, actually.
You see when I'm playing in various games, even one where we played way back in the day with Basic Fantasy, to the one I'm doing in Joth with my various characters, I generate my own reasons.
Me too. Oh, I do too. But I think, as you just said, Traveler is saying you can, but Traveler's kind of demanding you're in this kind of space, right? Is that what I mean?
It's necessary. Otherwise, you can't operate. You know, it takes legs. You're in a freaking ship, man. You're not walking across to do whatever. You can't lollygag. Yeah. You got to keep that sucker running.
Yeah.
So I mean,
this is why I generally
you're obliged to do that.
Yeah, and this is why I generally run my D&D games as low fantasy, low magic, human centric, because they're going to be in a situation where it's not just about getting rich and leveling up. They are a band of mercenaries. They are a band of people that in this world there's no other choice for them. This is what they do, or they would bang around the streets as a peasant, right? That's the gist of why I generally set up my games in that kind of capacity, right?
Yeah.
Even Symbaroum, that's why we're in Thistlehold. We're supposed to be going off into the Davakar right? And then everything else that happens to us along the way becomes compelling. Right.
What do you think I did with Ignatius whenever he stole that gourd with all the gems in it? When I was playing Ignatius in Joth, I took the gourd out of that the bullywug.
The frogman or whatever. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then later on we got separated in the party. I was playing another character on the side too, but he went up there and he bought out that bossy move and made shenanigans. He retired,
which makes more sense than why you would just keep going out and leveling up. Unless you create a character. Ignatius is super ambitious. He wants to actually create a stronghold and become a king in a kingdom. That's where D&D, that's why you're supposed to start building a guild as a thief or a stronghold because there's supposed to be a compelling reason why you are continuing to go out. I want to retain laborers to build my stronghold, and I got to protect my assets. So I got to hire an army. If you're playing D&D with those conceits, and we all survive. We come back from a module, and I have my cut is 10,000 gold. If a good DM says, where are you gonna put this gold? How are you gonna protect your assets? Now I'm like, fuck. I better hire retainers to protect my gold. I better put them at something. Now we got a compelling reason to spend the money, and also we got to keep feeding the giant. Now we got to keep feeding the beast. I'm going to have to keep getting gold to keep paying my army, right? But most D&D games don't do that. They don't. This is why Forbidden Lands, all of these ideas are built into Forbidden Lands. The hex crawl, the foundation is a hex crawl, but everything builds upon why you're bothering to do this stuff. Forbidden Lands is designed recognizing these things must exist.
Yeah, all of them have a base. You got to go like in Year Zero. You got to go out there and you bring stuff back to your base. So it keeps you on that loop.
Right.
But what do you think Eric's end goal is? What do you think Trotter's end goal is?
Eric's, I already know it. Eric's end game goal is to get revenge on to end the Grunge Guardian who murdered his mother and father and take his family, his farm, and cultivate his farm. So I would probably, if we destroyed the Grudge Guardian, I already have plenty of money. I would retire Arig as to the family farm. He would be the 18-year-old farmer, right?
Yeah. And Trotter wants to, like he already started the ball rolling on that when he stopped and talked to his dad.
I mean, Arig at 17 would not be doing any of this crazy shit except he has to.
Yeah. He has the reason that we generate while we're playing, if we're allowed with the DM to do that. But what I'm saying is situationally generated. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Like, to me, whenever I set the well witch up there in Brickett's bottom, and then we'll try to talk to his dad, said, start making mead. We're going to start doing this. I'm going to set up, whether I told you guys or not, but I'm going to set up a route because I'd already talked to Starworth because of ship to where we can ferry this, this mead back and forth, as well as travelers to make money.
Right.
To do it because the backstory is when I named him Fingersmith. Obviously, he's a thief and he's a whatever. And his family's looked down on the thing, but he's got to be a part of raising his family's name up in Brickett's bottom.
See, all of that comes. So this is also one of the differences, I guess, we would talk about: emergent play, emergent story, emergent conditions. D&D. These things occur post results.
Yeah.
Because pre-results is roll up a character, outfit him, let's go on an adventure. All this stuff comes from the results of play. Traveler, the conceit is you're already kind of pursuing these things, right? I mean, your character already has a background. Your character he's got these skills because he lived a life that you have that before this career choice of traveling, so to speak, right? So, or whatever it is you're doing, right? But becoming a traveler is something you do after your character's initial careers, right?
Yeah.
We are seeing Arig, again, his motivation was to survive, and now I've got this Grunge Guardian on my family property. It's got to be dealt with. But once he's gone, Arig, why would he continue to do this? Now, could there be compelling games where Lauren comes to Arig and says, Arig, we need your help. Would you join us for one more mission? Right? And the kid, I'm a 19-year-old farmer. I'm resurrect. We might come to Ignatius at Shenanigans and say, dude, we need your help. Come on. Blackfish Bay needs you. Man up. Get your club. Put the fucking fox hat down and come out with us one more time. There can be compelling. No, but you see what I'm saying, right? He can't. Right? You have to wear the fox hat. Right? It doesn't matter, right? But the point is, there would be emergent. These things emerge from the actual results of the campaign, from the play. And then it builds this world, right? Traveler kind of starts you off with some assumptions and conceits that you've existed. There's this grander, greater, as you said, there's a economy involved, right? There's a right. So it just, they all can lead to the same amazing experience. It's just you're going to go about getting there based on the intent of the original rules, the intent of the original design. It's going to take time in a way in a D&D campaign where you start to feel this stuff, right? You start to sense this need, right? I have a need to hire laborers to crack open the ground so we can expose this Grunge Guardian to sunlight. That was Arig's idea, from Bomber, that we could expose him to sunlight and deal with him that way. But I need money to hire laborers to do this. Now, if our GM, I've got 1,500 silver pieces, I think, or 15, I can't remember how much, but I got quite a bit. What is it? So if Todd, as a GM, doesn't make available the opportunity for me to actually employ laborers to start doing this, I'm stuck. We're stuck in right? So if there's an economy, there would be. Now, they may not be here. We may have to travel to another town to hire laborers, whatever. These become the missions. These become the goals, right? Yeah. Like Traveler, we want to buy a better ship, or we want to whatever. The goal is to dig, whatever the thing is, they occur from play, emergent play.
Yeah, D&D, especially the way we play open like that,
yeah.
it happens in emergent play, unless you're starting a linear thing to where you're tasked to do some kind of a goal by the king or whatever, and then you're set on that path.
Which I like. I mean, I actually enjoy games that ask you to explain why you're doing this and why you're with this group of people, because then we have, like Medieval, he is a great warrior, and he's surrounded by his veteran warriors. They are his friends, his colleagues, and they make their money protecting these people, right? These important people. Right?
Yeah. They've got it's the same way in travel, because there's a reason that you're all together.
Yep.
It has back history, and then you converge at that little nexus point, and then you go together and you find out the rest of your history.
Unlike Star Wars, if we just go back to the original film, Star Wars, the third episode of the, the fourth episode, but it was the first episode. It is they are thrown together by happenstance, every one of them. Yeah. Luke. They murder his family. Luke's, fuck it, I might as well join Obi-Wan now. They hire Han Solo by happenstance. They need to get off the planet and go to a place, so they hire Han Solo. Right? C-3PO and R2-D2 are wandering in the desert. All of them come together through happenstance. They all end up on this grand adventure that, later, I guess you could look at the nine episode and say they all were, there was like a fate that drove them all together, right? But the first film, George Lucas didn't know he would do anything else, right? I mean, he could have failed miserably, They are individuals that all come together, and they really don't have a plan. Princess Leia's rebellion is her desire as part of the rebellion kind of keeps them together because of Princess Leia, so to speak, right? Luke just wants to be a part of something other than farming, right? The hero to zero concept. Han Solo's trying to pay off a bounty hunter, right? They all have individual motivations, but they end up together and staying together beyond that. Well, that's not easy. I mean, that's perfect for role-playing. I make a character completely in a vacuum away from you, and David makes a character in a vacuum away from us, and we all then get together at the table and go, well, who are we? What are we doing here, right? It's a vacuum, a kind of, we just hand wave it off, or, right? Some games say no, like Blood and Bone. Why are you together? Who do you like in this group? Who do you dislike in this group? These things will matter as the game also plays, right?
They can see sometime cursed a little bit to me, but whenever you have an open thing where you have all these things, you're trying to make a reason that you're all together. Some of it can feel forced while you're doing it, but I mean, it's a beautiful thing whenever there's a subtlety of play, just like you're saying in the Star Wars phase, where all these different people, why are they together? Mm-hmm. And that's where I'll say before, there's outside focus kind of, there has to be some kind of a thing that puts them together, where they're all like criminals together or something.
Yeah, and this is one of my big problems. Otherwise, yeah, exactly. And this is why Alien, as a role-playing game, Alien works, because you're a crew on a ship doing a job. Blade Runner to me doesn't.
There's less character
because Blade Runner was about one guy who's a Blade Runner who's got a job to do. That doesn't work as well for a party of guys in Blade Runner. From where I come from, what Blade Runner means to me, that doesn't work. We're all cops on a case. That doesn't work for me, right? It has nothing to do with the conceits of the film Blade Runner for me, right? Another example of this would be Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is about one guy and his adventures to do a thing. There may be these periphery characters that revolve around him, but Indiana Jones is a singular event, like Batman, so to speak. Now, the pulp high adventure thing doesn't have to be Indiana Jones, right? You can have pulp high adventure groups like Doc Savage that work together to do a thing, right? So some games, the conceits of, say, Indiana Jones as a IP role-playing game wouldn't work for me. The pulpy high adventure works brilliantly. Savage Worlds, that worked great. But the idea of a game that features Indiana Jones, that to me doesn't fly as well, right?
Squeeze an RPG out of an IP.
Yeah, out of a very popular film, right? Yeah, out of a very popular film. Yeah, as opposed to just recognizing that the film harkens to old pulp fiction comic books and novels.
But as far as the open play of hex crawl, like say we do in Jotham, there's various players, and I'm using that as a standpoint of like, if I could raise up several players and retire them in different areas, then they become part of the NPC collection, and I'm experiencing the whole world with Joth. I don't look at it necessarily by character, but there is subtleties for character development opportunities because everybody's learning what their motivations are. There may be an outside force keeping us together or holding us together, preferably, but I like the dynamics of subtle things. But as opposed to that, whenever you have some kind of a group like a SEAL team or a Black Ops team, or you have, like you're saying, those mercenaries that were tied together, and you say, I've got a strong reason why we're all together. We can't go apart, and we each have our own personalities, but you really don't have like personal agendas or goals. It's really limited at that point to where your goal is to just be your profession in the party. It's more profession or class oriented play, and it harkens back to the old D&D to where you're this and you're this. You fill your role, you do this, but it necessarily doesn't really entice me as much as open play to where I get to find the reason Trotter's doing what he does, or having difficulties with everything. But I know what Eric wants to do, and we have to bandy the ball back and forth and find a middle ground between that two, and that's the same play.
And that's where I think most people misinterpret when I talk about a game's intent, the design's intent, what the game intends the session to be, the GM's role, the player's role, the intent of rules versus player intent. And if players have a particular intent of play and they choose a game that creates a particular intent and they don't jive, those players aren't going to have a good time with that type of set of rules, right? So if your intent is to experience a character in crazy circumstances that aren't overly defined, or there isn't a greater game element like collecting the most money. So you can win D&D if you get to level 10 and everybody sits down at the campaign saying, wow, so we're actually on a race to see who gets to level 10. I can create a gamey element that is either good for the campaign or really bad for players, right? Don't know, but again, their player intent versus game intent are something that, again, I think is very often lost in the shuffle. If you want to be Batman and you come to a Supers game where, no, you're part of a group of heroes that are all pretty much equal.
Yeah.
Your intent, though, is to be the leader of the superheroes. Well, you better pick a different game, right? You better pick a game that allows you to be Batman, right? Or maybe a bad example, but my point is, I think that's the intent of choosing to play an IP, a game based on an IP like Aliens. The intent for those people who involve themselves, I buy the game, I want to GM it, I invite players who want to play Aliens, they want to be an alien. Their intent is to experience the psychological horror of the film's Alien, right? Their intent is to be a character in these situations and play to find out, play to experience that thing, right? It's not to amass wealth and buy a bigger ship.
No, it isn't. There's like a criteria, and some of this is where Traveler hits the sweet spot for me. With whenever I play, if I play something like Aliens or something where you're already kind of part of a team, a functioning team, and you have a role to do it, I see those as more as like a series of one-shot monsters of the week, that you're up against, and that can work, but it doesn't really let me explore a character. Todd's World of Joth, we're world building. And what I'm doing is experiencing all the world through various players that I'll play for a while and then retire to the side. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting that. That's what I feel like about that. But I'm having to insert my natural tendency to want to do things like his intent of the game isn't to say like he's allowing it, but it isn't to promote players to say like you want to build an economy or you want to have a larger picture of what you want to support your family. We do that as players. So in the old OSE or the D&D thing, it doesn't really have that. So we're injecting that. I even did that back in the day with your basic fantasy thing when they had all the coins that's given around. I'm like, still this, we can get gold
but
and remit this gold.
My intent of Esbalon, putting you on an island that was bordered, my intent was for the players to impact the world and bring down the actual emperor, right? So how they were going to go about adventuring and having fun and doing other thing ultimately was going to always be this emperor that was to change the fate of Esbalon. Whether the players engaged in that larger thing or not didn't matter, but it would have been ultimately the reality of Endgame is that this guy's going to continually be a thorn in your sides until you begin to do things to undermine him. As Mark was minting coins, Mark said we got a silver mine, let's mint coins, begin to undermine that bastard, right? Even if Mark didn't care that the results would actually end him, but it was going to be a piece in the puzzle to, right, in which he could affect it.
That.
Yeah. So, but I did border the world and put these variables in place that didn't allow the world to be anything and everything. It was this limited space, and there were major key players that were a problem, and so I created a space that had this boundaries, right?
I love engaging that on a larger area. Like if you said that was perfect for me because it lets me do what I would like to do, and it doesn't restrict me. But none of the
players, as characters, had to target the evil emperor as part of their goals, right?
That wouldn't even be part of my thing if I was doing, a Quantum Black or any kind like Scott's game. I'm there to do what I do, and this is a mission-based, like episodic thing. This is what's happening this week. But whenever Traveler offers me that, what's integral to the game is that economy, and it's very there. It isn't like a supposery that I can or can't get. It's like I have to. It's part of the thing. I got to keep the shit.
And here's a great, exactly. Yeah. I got you. And here's a great example. Could aliens happen in Traveler? Could Alien happen in Traveler?
It would be more of. Yeah, I think you could force it in there, but it's a different type of It's a different type of thing. Like I said, it would have to be a one shot or like if you came across a derelict that's Horizon ship.
See, and I completely disagree with that. I believe Alien is just a scenario. It could easily happen in a Traveler session where you guys end up trapped on a ship with an alien. Scenario could easily happen in Traveler. But can Traveler happen in Aliens? The game. I'm talking about the games, not the...
No.
Right.
No.
So you're playing Aliens to have one type of experience.
Yeah.
But I could certainly have a session in your... Let's say we're 15 sessions into a Traveler campaign, and you guys happen to come across the derelict ship that has an alien on it, and this thing ends up, So you could end up having could have an alien scenario in a Traveler campaign.
That's why you go back to the IP of trying to make money off of IP that is very specific to a situation that people find themselves in. Right. Mainly the main characters. So you're always trying to cast that game, and you're like, what do we do when we play an alien?
Right. What's happening?
This is what you're going to do.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest. This will be in a way. We're at 2 hours and 30 minutes. We should probably wrap it up. But I wanted to go out on this note. This has been my problem with what I am seeing happening in the industry. We're in the golden age, but now we're in this golden age of novelty games, right? We're going to create entire games based on these niches, these novelties, these genres. It's a narrow genre, and great, fine. I would not be interested in a $60 game of Aliens when I'm afraid I'm going to end up having the same experience with slightly different details over and over and over. I'll pay a $25. I'll buy Those Dark Places for $25. And we can do any fucking thing we want. We can have an alien type session, or we can have you guys are building a science survey station around a moon, and there's going to be all kinds of shit that goes with that, right? It isn't all aliens things. And we know that of Those Dark Places because the goal is to do a career and survive 25 years. It's not meant to kill you off. It's not a horror survival game, right? But what I'm seeing with a lot of these IPs is they are novelty games. They are niche novelty games. And this for me, is great for consumers, I suppose. Not something I think is healthy for the industry. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd rather see I'd rather see larger. I'd rather see games that are broader to allow multiple avenues, right? Like Traveler, like the original D&D.
Multiple scenarios, yeah.
Yeah, they can have worlds, they can have certain conceits, but give me the space to turn that into a 15-year campaign with my best friends, right? There are people who have been playing AD&D campaigns for 20 years, 25 years, right? And they've encountered all kinds of different scenarios, I guarantee it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to draw from that anyway. It's
right.
just, it's a way to make money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like,
which is, again, what makes Traveler classic? What makes Traveler... Why will people be playing Traveler 50 years from its inception date?
Because it's so utilitarian.
Because it's broad, and it's not a novelty. Will they be playing Aliens in 50 years? No, they'll be maybe the 15th incarnation of the IP in a different rule set.
Yeah, Aliens will come out, and then another IP will come out, and then another IP will come out. It's like releases, time releases, movies. It's a way to make money.
Yep.
What's the next thing that's going to come out? So it's like Nintendo release a certain game. They may release Smash Brothers, and there a couple of months later another game. I'm saying that. You know what I mean? It's big reveals and releases that people kind of, what's exciting now?
Yeah.
So you do that and generate money to bring it in.
Yeah.
But like Traveler, I could play forever on that one book.
That's what I mean. Traveler's classic because it's not dated, it's broad, it's general, and sky's the limit. There are certain design intents, and there's certain elements that say these are the limitations of what we're doing with Traveler. Doesn't mean you have to play it that way, but I think most diehard Traveler fans would see certain Traveler APs and go, that ain't Traveler, right? Because somebody tried to use Traveler for Star Wars, and they tried to use Traveler for something it ain't. And it's like, well, no, if you pay attention to Traveler's core, it gives you a sense of what it's about, but we could have an Aliens-type session using Traveler. You just happen to be the same group of guys, and you happen to run into a ship that has an alien on it. It may not create a horror element with sanity or pressure checks or stress checks, but you could certainly be facing an alien that's difficult to defeat in a confined space, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you could. There's other ways to represent stress or terror or whatever. We do that in games anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean? Whether you're playing your character that way or whether you're knocking out negatives.
Sure. So anyway, fascinating. The goal of this podcast was to discuss, to give a focused discussion to Mongoose Traveler. I think we did okay. We tended to talk about a lot more, which is what we do, and that's okay because they're all tied together. It's about the hobby. So I'm okay with us broadening that conversation a little bit and drilling back down. But the gist of it is Mongoose Traveler is not only one of Dell's favorites. I think it is a classic. I think it deserves attention, and we should probably give it some attention at some point. Even if we just set up a few sessions, maybe a round robin, we all GM one or two sessions. So I don't know, but I think it deserves to look at why is it one of the founding bedrock of the foundations of the hobby, and of course, why was it remastered in 2016? Why did we see RuneQuest, brought back onto its feet post Avalon Hill's collapse? And these games were bedrocks. They were foundations of the hobby that were different than D&D.
Oh yeah,
that have fan base followings that are dedicated to these games. Yeah. In a world that seems to think there is only one. Dungeons and Dragons 5e, and if you don't believe me, watch the movie, watch the TV show. I mean, again, we're not in that. We're in that world, but we're not in that world, right? There is so much more than D&D 5e in the world, right? But you wouldn't know it. The average pop culture person wouldn't know it at all, right?
No, not the casual player.
Yeah, or even people who don't play, they know what D&D is.
Oh yeah, it's a brand, like you're saying.
Yeah, huge.
Therefore, the brands have to be tapped.
Right.
People know them; they can make money off them.
Yep, exactly. Great conversation, my friend. Another good talk.
Okay.
As usual, we can completely disagree and get along okay, and you can be utterly wrong, but I don't hold that against you. And
you create the baboon things.
No, brother, man. Listen, I guess we should get back to our lives until tonight, right? We're playing Joth tonight, so we gotta give some attention to our loved ones, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
All right, brother. Have a great day, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Take care.
Late.